4-yard line. It's 3rd down and 6. Dart. Wells. Touchdown, Juice Wells.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Big 3rd down and a lob to the end zone. It's a 50-50 ball for Chase Lane. He's got it for the touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Miller motions out. Milroe just takes off. Guess what? Quarterback run. Jalen Milroe to sprint. Number 4 with his 4th rushing touchdown. 72 yards. A dagger.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
For the lead for BYU. Snap, hold, kick, on the way. Kick is good!
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
This game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome in, Paul Catalina here on Smokeless Fridays, which could extend another week, could be over. Mm-hmm. Garrett is apoplectic.
I am.
Because here's the thing. We could all be back together in studio, which is fine. Or, and that means he doesn't have to work late on Friday nights as well. But he doesn't wish ill will on any team that we cover.
No.
Just, it's a weird thing. Like, it's funny. Like, I remember every year we'd get to the end of the high school football season, and my thought was always, like, I mean, I want the team, I want Midway to do well.
Right, you want to see them have success.
But, the minute I get in the car after the last game is over, I'm just like, oh, cool, I've got Fridays back.
Yes.
That's exactly how it feels. It's very weird, conflicted feeling. It's like, I can't even describe it. I can't, there's nothing to compare it to.
No, I mean, it's maybe like school finally getting out, the angst of going to school for a full year, and then you finally get there, and it's just like that last day of school feeling, like you're going to miss seeing your friends, but at the same time, I just need some time for myself.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I can compare
That's the way. Well, and it's ironic because it's school.
Correct.
It's school. Yeah. So we are going to talk, we're going to talk about some games first, and then we have a shorter smokestack to get into. But I do have to leave some room on the back end because should I not let him bother me as much? Because Greg Sankey says things, and they're so imperialistic, and they're very hypocritical. Yes, but they're very hypocritical, and I'm getting tired of his, one of these things is not like the other. One of these things is not the same nonsense.
It's annoying. And this is from somebody whose team is in that conference, favorite team is in that conference. But at the same time, he's out there pushing his narrative. The only thing that really is going to be able to shut him up is consistently being able to knock those teams off. Somebody has got to win the championship, not in the SEC, for 2 or 3 years in a row. It kind of checked them. And until that happens, I don't think you're going to stop him being able to go out there and bolster the strength of, the SEC and everything that it entails. I mean, you need the Big Ten to win another one this year, somebody from the Big 12 or something to step up, put a couple of those, and kind of kill that narrative. Because as long as the SEC is in the mix and as long as they have the top dogs out there, he's just going to keep doing this. There's nothing that's going to stop it.
Yeah. No, there's not. I mean, and again, he's doing everything he can to pull out all those stops.
Right.
So that it's not. And it's just, Garrett, I get so mad. And I shouldn't I shouldn't let it affect me.
Well, you're
I
in a different
shouldn't-
position because you got the brunt of it last year.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably where more of your hatred and vitriol comes from in this.
Yeah, it does. It does quite a bit. I mean, it really, really, really does. But it's like, and I'm going to say it, like, if you guys haven't heard it, it's something he said on Feinbaum yesterday, which I'm sure Feinbaum was like, yes, dear leader, of course.
Yes.
But it's like, and here's the thing. If you're a Baylor or TCU fan, this particular comment is going to really make you mad.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to really, really make you mad. Now, granted, it affected you the very first year of the playoff, and then it was subsequently corrected in later years because you, but, like, I can't stand hypocrisy.
No, I get that.
I cannot stand hypocrisy. It is the most ridiculous thing. And I understand that people who are overtly hypocritical have no self-awareness, or they think that their thing is different, even though it's the same. Like, if you say, well, that's the same as this, they're like, well, no, mine's different because my cause is just.
Right.
Like, well, you know, that's and the thing is, justice is not necessarily always in the eye of the beholder. Like, sometimes it's pretty cut and dry of what's just and what's not. So I hear him say it, and again, this is a very long tease to it, and we will get to it at the end because I want to, like, I kind of want to back end load this into Sam Khan.
Yeah.
At 3:30, but it's just, you know.
It's what you come to expect at this point.
It does. But I just, as a human being, I know that, like, you guys are watching me. I've closed my eyes right now.
Trying to get some sin.
As a human being, when I hear this in any walk of life, it drives me insane. And I'll just tell you, as a married person, I've had to learn that there's levels of hypocrisy that I just have to accept.
Exactly.
Because the rules are different on either side of this game, you know. But I'm not married to Greg Sankey. He never asked,
right?
But I would say no. But
sure,
I'm not married to Greg Sankey, so I can look at this. And again, he's not my wife, so he can't play the hypocrisy card. And look, when I point out that, like, you know, and I know everybody watching has had this argument with their spouse. When they say, hey, I don't like when you do this, if they do the exact same thing, you just have to stop doing it the way you're doing it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be a fight that never ends and it's stupid. So you're like, okay, I hear you. But, like, bringing up, like, well, is this different than that? Just asking. And then they're like, well, here's why that's different. I've prepared a dissertation. Please sit down. I've got graphs and charts. And you're like, I was just pointing out that it seems similar to me. But again, I don't think about these things at all ever, but you do. So but yeah, let's get into some of the games this weekend. I think in the Big 12, you know, we talked yesterday on Triple Option and this about BYU and Kansas. And it's a very intriguing game for a 9-0 versus 3-6.
Correct.
Because the 3-6 has started to look like everybody expected them to. And it may be too little too late for them to get to a bowl game because they got to go 3-0. And they've got the best team in the league right now this week. But I think the best game that we haven't spent enough time talking about is Arizona and Kansas State.
Arizona State and Kansas State?
Arizona State and Kansas State.
Absolutely.
Arizona State's 7-2. They're not ranked. If they beat Kansas State, I would assume that they would be. And I'm going to ask Payton about this later. Payton Soyer will join us along with Sam Khan, Grayson Grundhoefer, Evan Abrams, Connor Orgera, and Kenneth Davis. Our normal Friday lineup. Josh Neighbors not today, but anyway. But yes, our normal Friday lineup of chock full of analysts. And then, of course, me and Garrett bantering about, and Garrett like Garrett might have to. I should have brought a Sunday Scaries gummy. They're one of our new sponsors. I should have brought one because I can already feel why I would need it. So, so thank you to Sunday Scaries, absolutely. And but yeah, I am. I mean, it just made me so tense. But Arizona and Kansas State in Manhattan, 7.5-point favorite. And you'll hear Evan Abrams talk about it specifically. Kansas State, 7.5-point favorite at home. I buy that. Like, I think that'll probably be, you know, like if this game is 31 to 20, okay, I could buy that. But if this game is 38-35, I could buy that too.
Right.
If this game is even lower scoring than that, I could buy that. If it's a 3-point game, I could buy it. What Kenny Dillingham is doing is not too different than what Kalani Sitake has done this year. And then he just got this team believing that they can go out and win. And they can go out and do big things. And they also have BYU coming up. So BYU has gone along here, and they keep winning, but these next 2 weeks are mission critical, right, to keeping their head above water because they could – and, again, the Big 12 is a conference that we've seen, unless apparently you're playing Oklahoma State or Arizona or UCF, where you're going to, like, most weeks you're going to win. Or you're not going to definitely win, right? And, yeah, we've seen some weird – I think the weirdest part is we've seen all these teams in these losing streaks, and they haven't – that's the sad part about 16 teams is if you're in a plunge like Oklahoma State is, when do you get to play another team that's on a losing streak?
I mean,
if I'm in Stillwater right now, you're like, how? Like, Arizona can't win. Why can't we play them? You know, and I guess that I don't know if they do or not.
It's really the luck of the draw with the schedule, honestly, because you're going to see more and more of this year in and year out where the schedule flips and somebody's going to get a gauntlet and and somebody's going to have an easy path. That's kind of just the new world we live in. And as far as this game goes with Arizona State and Kansas State, I think it's going to be a really close matchup. I think this is one that is won on the ground. If Arizona State's defense can find a way to make Avery Johnson throw a couple of interceptions, I think that they can really solidify and get the win. I think that's really what this is going to come down to is Avery Johnson taking care of the football, because as Kansas State has slipped, it's because he's starting to try to force the situation and win it on his own. And he's making passes and attempts that they're not there now, but in a couple of years with the accuracy increasing and everything and learning how to get better at reading the defenses, that will be there. I don't know that Arizona State can go into Manhattan and get the win. I think they can make it very close. I think that I do have a feeling that they could beat BYU the next week, but I think this is one that K-State needs to get a signature win at home to help bolster their opportunity to make it to Jerry World, whereas Arizona State is just kind of playing spoiler right now. And I don't necessarily think they can get into the rank. I'm interested to hear what Payton has to say, because I don't think that if they beat Kansas State, I don't necessarily think that gets them into the rankings. I think that can get them to closer, like right on the outside looking in. But definitely if they play spoiler next week, then they can get in.
If they beat Arizona State and South Carolina beats Mizzou,
South Carolina should beat Mizzou.
Or vice versa. But if South Carolina beats Mizzou, then I think that opens up a spot for them to get in at the bottom.
Right.
You know, right there where, you know, I think, you know, part of me thinks that you should maybe already be ranked, but, you know, Louisville 6-3 and 19th.
Yeah. No,
you know,
I get
and then,
it.
like, you know, so yes, I mean they've got a loss to, you know, Miami. They've got a loss to Notre Dame. Who else is Louisville lost to? I can't remember. SMU. So like Louisville's losses are like
top 25 teams.
Yeah, like, all playoff contenders. All playoff contenders. So I get that. Arizona State doesn't maybe have some of that.
And also, like, Arizona State started so much further back than where Louisville did. Like, nobody expected anything from Arizona State this year.
Yeah, Arizona State's losses are to Cincinnati and Tech.
And those are terrible. Terrible losses.
I mean, by comparison.
Well, Tech, I mean,
Tech, maybe not, but like Cincinnati, like they're both not great. Plus, they don't have a signature win. You know, like Utah was 16th when they beat them, but Utah's not 16th now.
Right.
Nor were they 16th at any point post Cam Rising.
Yeah.
Like they weren't. They just weren't. So this week, next week would give them those signature wins. Also, this week, next week could put them. If they win out, there's a great shot that they're in the title game.
That would be
Because
phenomenal.
they would be 10-2, and then it would just come down to, okay, the tiebreakers with who else would be 10-2 maybe.
I mean, at that point, you're looking at what, like Colorado?
Colorado. Well, Colorado would have to lose again, right?
But, I mean,
because
it's
they only have
possible.
one loss.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Colorado would have to lose again. But yeah, if you win out, like they have a reasonable shot that, like, depending on what happens in the rest of the 3 weeks for everybody else, they could be from, we don't know what's going to happen to them, to being at least in consideration.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very interesting. I don't think enough people we haven't talked about it enough because it's very interesting. Now, because Kansas State needs to win out for the same thing.
Correct.
They need to win out. Like, the only chance they have of getting in the game, either of these two, is winning out and then getting help. Now, part of that help for Kansas State would be winning out because they have Iowa State, Farmageddon, at the end. If that one happens, then they've taken Iowa State, who's already on the outside looking in, completely out of it. But you'd also need BYU to lose. You need BYU to lose several lose out if you're Kansas State for sure. And you need something to happen to Colorado. But right now, the Big 12 championship game played today is BYU and Colorado.
I'm all for that. That would be fun as hell.
Just as I predicted in my predictions, and I was slammed. And this was obviously a dream I had recently and not real because that's how the Big 12 has been. So I'm really curious to see how that one goes. It's maybe the game in the Big 12 this week I want to watch the most. Elsewhere, outside of Georgia and Tennessee, the game I want to watch nationally the most, and just because it's an old school Southwest Conference rivalry in Fayetteville, is Texas at Arkansas. Got to say, I've got to credit the SEC a little bit here. Arkansas and A&M both got the Longhorns at home after not being in the league with them for different amounts of time. The Longhorns have obviously 30 years now, but A&M for a little less than half that. But not being in the conference at the same time, actually more. It's like 92. Like
it's been a while.
It's been like 33, 34 years since they're in the conference. Now they've played like they kept that up, but it was like once
every few years.
Every 4 to 6 years, they would do a 2-game series. And Arkansas has always played them well. And just to watch, especially like even early on in the game, if Texas blows them out like Ole Miss did, nobody's going to be surprised. But I do think it's probably not going to go for Arkansas like Ole Miss, at least in the first half, because if you're Arkansas and you're walking out, your fans are going to be rabid about it because they hate Texas. They hate them. They hate them. They hate them. Like, it was a massive rivalry in the 70s. And then in the 80s, obviously the Southwest Conference, slowly deteriorated. And then it went away as far as the every year rivalry. And Arkansas never rebounded. At least wins on the field wise from what they were in the Southwest Conference to what they've been in the SEC. Now, I mean, monetarily fine. But they are but national scene.
They're an afterthought.
And the SEC's been great for them money wise. I'm sure they don't want for much. But they're the poster child of be careful what you wish for.
Them in Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly. Them in Nebraska, be careful what you wish for. See, A&M, if before you throw them in or anybody else kind of in that, or Missouri.
They're the same.
They're the same as they were in the Big 12 with more money. Again, I remember I had a coworker at the radio station one time, and she was the program director. And she wasn't doing a very good job at that. She was kind of focused on other things outside of her life, and they took it away from her. And while I understand that that's upsetting, she was very upset, and I said, well, I mean, did they give you a pay cut? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, did they take away their money? She's like, no, it's the same money. You know, they did that. I was
So you got a raise.
I was like, wait, hold on. I was like, you just got a raise. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, so you know all the work that you're doing, they've told you not to do that, and they're going to pay you the same amount of money. That's a raise. For A&M and Mizzou, they've been like, hey, just be an above-average football team, and we're going to double your cash.
Yeah.
All right.
The one that's got to be careful is Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's the one that's got to be careful.
Yeah. They are definitely going to have to live a different life for a little bit. Now, I think that eventually Oklahoma, because of the enthusiasm, will find a way. You know, they'll find a way. But they've had such a weird transition, right, in that. But one other game I want to talk about, Clemson to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, undefeated. Now they lost 2 games in a row. Clemson, you know, they are who they are.
Yeah.
Like, they're good. They're not great. They're good. They're not great. Like, that's Dabo's been able to keep their heads above water, and you can see, like, letting Garrett Riley kind of get a foothold and, you know, the offense changing. I think the transfer portal thing is clearly it's not going to ever be as big a deal to him because he recruits high school so well and retains so well. The transfer portal thing for him is going to be when Georgia, you know, when you play a team like Georgia who doesn't use it like Florida State did,
right,
or use it like Colorado does, like why not just go get, you don't have a tight end? Well, you can go get the best one. You need a couple wide receivers and a DB, go get them. Not 15, 20, 25, 40 guys, like 4 or 5. Your all-star center goes, and the next guy's a redshirt freshman who weighs 287 pounds. You don't want him there yet. He's not ready. Well, go get a senior.
Right.
Go get a guy.
Like, they never replaced Makuba. Like, that you could have easily replaced Andrew Makuba.
Yeah, that's just it. Like, you lose an All-American.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily have to go getting another All-American's hard, but go getting a guy who's a veteran who's pretty good. You know, that's where I think, and if he ever just decides to do that, they'll be back where they were.
Yeah. Especially with the ACC, yeah.
Yeah, dominating. Can you imagine had they gotten Keon Coleman instead of FSU? Like, you know, what would that have done to a team that had a really great defense last year? You know, had they fixed that offensive line a little bit last year when you have Will Shipley? Like, that was a thing. So I've been on a soapbox about it, but they've still been good. They're just kind of like Penn State now, though.
No, that's a really good comparison.
They're kind of like Penn State where, all right, like, you can beat up on everybody else, but, you know, if they played SMU or Miami, which they don't, and now they probably won't because of the way the conference has gone, they probably lose.
They do. And as far as this game goes, like, in our picks, I took Pitt, and I'm kind of regretting that the more I think about it. I think that
you got time to change it if you need to.
I know, but I think Clemson's defense steps up in this game. I feel like Pitt has kind of been figured out to this point. Like, they had their run, and now the juice is kind of catching up.
Well, they've got Louisville next week.
So I think they might have taken benefits of an easier schedule early on too. But at the same time, like, they're both really good teams, or pretty good teams. They're competitive. I think this could be a really fun game that honestly goes down to the wire. But the more I think about it, I kind of leaning more towards Clemson in this one.
Okay, let's rapid fire through some of these things here,
Okay.
Garrett, because we got to get to Sam in a minute. All right, G.J. Lagway will return for Florida against LSU and is expected to start. He missed the Texas game last week with a hamstring injury that he suffered against Georgia. We'll see how ready he is to go, and is he going to be mobile, or is he going to have to rely on a lot of things? You know, look, Billy Napier doesn't have to play him to save his job anymore.
Yeah.
But he does have to, like, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel against Texas. I don't know how much of a difference Lagway makes in that game. Obviously, I don't think it'd be the same kind of blowout, but Texas didn't just destroy them because they couldn't score. They couldn't stop Texas either.
No, they couldn't.
Yeah, that wasn't that. Thomas Castellanos lost his starting job at BC. Well, the transfer portal doesn't open until the 9th, but he's already decided he's going to jump in the transfer portal, and he's not going to be with the team. I don't like this look.
I don't like this either.
I mean, I like he had his good run, but he's lost his starting job. You have to hang out for like 3 more weeks.
Like, get better. Compete.
Yeah.
That's what I don't. That bothers the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah, that bothers me. All right, next up, Ben Ferguson's How podcast on Thursday. Senator Ted Cruz, who is now the head of the Commerce Committee, said that the Wild West of college sports is endangering the future and viability of the industry and plans to address it as chair of that committee. He said, look, Democrats, it was not a priority to them. And that's true. It was not a priority to them. I don't think it's a priority to him either. I think when he's asked about it, he says this. But he says he'll advance legislation on it. I wonder how they navigate the legislation with what the courts have ruled.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is like the courts are still
the courts have ruled a certain thing, and so they just need to. Again, there's really like pretty simple, basic things they can do, and part of it could just be, providing a structure of how it works, and not pretending like this is amateur sports anymore.
Yeah, that's the biggest part is the faking it.
Yeah, let's stop faking it. I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know how he really feels about it.
I don't think he cares.
I don't know how he really feels about it. I don't know how a lot of the politicians on either side feel about it.
Don't care.
Other than you actually hear oh, well, this is bad that these kids are making all this money. Well, you can't prevent them from doing that. So you think that that's bad. Okay, that's your opinion, but fundamentally, legally, what do you do? Not just, I think this is ruining this. There's a legal part of it, and there needs to be some governance, especially protection for the athletes.
Right.
That needs some governance for sure. And then just some governance on what is what. But the NCAA, having the NCAA and Congress come to an agreement on something,
good luck.
Or if they both agree on the same thing, it's probably not something that's viable. Right? I don't know. So again, I don't know how Ted Cruz personally feels about it and what bills he would as the chair of the committee. I know in broad strokes what he said, but I don't know how he feels about it. And so if he's the head of the committee to advance a bill, it's going to have to wet his whistle. I don't know what will. He's not been very specific about that. And I do and if you're saying I'm sitting here just dumping on him, yeah, I do that quite a bit. But what I do agree with is I do think the future viability of the sport is in trouble if they don't figure out a way to make this regulated. So
something's got to be done.
Yeah.
And if he can do it, then go for it.
Yeah,
but
go for it.
I just don't have faith in any politician doing anything.
No, I don't. I just, I don't know how he really feels about it.
Right.
I don't, I have no idea. I have no idea how he feels about it. Texas A&M 12 Man Foundation. You get priority points when you make donations to the 12 Man Foundation. Now you get priority points for contributions to Texas Aggies United, the official NIL partner. So that applies starting today. Anything on or after today, you'll get points. So if you go ahead and drop a couple nickels in the Marcel Reed bucket, then you're going to get better seats.
You got some good ROI against LSU. Jesus Christ. Still got PTSD from that.
Florida State AD Michael Alford shared this information in a booster town hall that says the Noles brand value and viewership ratings. He says he loves to look at TV numbers by market after big games and say we own the state of Florida now. You can't really see these charts so much on that, but they're right behind. They're the top viewership in the ACC. They're beating the Gators in the rankings right now. Right now,
yeah,
it's a temporary thing. Do this. Here's the thing: people like watching Florida State currently because they're watching 13-0, a 13-0 diamond turn back into a lump of coal. Yeah. That's what they're doing. Coal's not even fair. It's turning from a diamond to dog crap.
Right.
Which is so appropriate given what happened, but they're watching that go from here to here. Next year, if 1-9 just turns into 3-6, they'll flip it.
Right.
You got to get better again, or you're going to lose your cachet. And here's the thing, and we're going to talk about this with Sam Kahn. So I want you guys to think about this during the break. On Paul Feinbaum yesterday, Greg Sankey says of a team picking up a potential third loss in the SEC title game, I would expect that the committee continues the form of thinking that these championship games, the 13th data point, is more of a reward and recognition for the work done. Brian Fisher tweeted this out. We've had Brian Fisher on the show back in the day. It's been a while, but he is not talking about the ACC and Big 12.
No.
And he's probably not necessarily talking about the Big 10 either, but he wouldn't say that because now they're joined.
Yeah.
You know, they're there. But okay, Greg, we'll talk about that next with the one and only Sam Kahn, the Techspert. This is 365 Sports.
PettyClinicLowT.com can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Hi, this is David Smoke. As you get older, usually upper 30s, but most likely in your 40s and eventually the 50s, when you get your testosterone checked, 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have low testosterone levels. It's part of father time. It's just living life. And that clock starts to tick. Maybe you're fortunate it doesn't have any effect on you. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Tell them I sent you. They will set you up to get your blood work. If they get the results Dr. Petty does, he'll look at them, and then if you need testosterone boost, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone levels so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. PettyClinicLowT.com.
It's Jeep Adventure Days at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals are hotter than ever. Drive a new 2024 Jeep Compass Latitude for only $24,995. Or how about leasing a new Fiat 500e for only $149 a month? Whether you're ready for an adventure in a Jeep or zipping around in a stylish Fiat, we've got you covered. Hurry to Allen Samuels in Waco today.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross, and of course Sam Kahn of The Athletic, the Techspert, joins us now. And Sam, before the break, I read this quote that Greg Sankey had on Feinbaum yesterday on the potential of a team picking up the third loss in the SEC title game. I would expect that the committee continues the form of thinking that these championship games, that 13th data point is more of a reward and recognition for the work done. So here he is laying out a scenario where the championship game shouldn't matter for the SEC. Do you think he would have that same view for the Big 12 or ACC?
I'm sorry. What do you think? I mean,
no,
let's be real.
I do not think he would have that.
But because if Colorado goes and loses to BYU in the Big 12 championship game and Colorado has 3 losses, or is he going to be okay with Colorado getting one of those at-large bids? I think not.
Yeah. And this drives me nuts because especially, look, and Sam, you were around at 13 and 14, or in 14, Baylor and TCU didn't have a 13th data point. And they were told that the 13th data point was the thing that mattered. So now, I don't know, things are changing. They've changed as a 12-team playoff, but the narrative enough for Greg Sankey is, well, I mean, if they get there, I mean, that's reward in and of itself. Merit badge onto you. I think the hypocrisy in that, and I cannot stand this, one of these things is not like the other nonsense, when I think, especially now, we're starting to see that outside of maybe a couple of teams, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, and the thing that bothers me the most about this is, to me, in my opinion, this is all very calculated by Greg Sankey, because we know the long game in this situation. It's looking ahead to 2026 and beyond. When they floated that trial balloon earlier this year about getting the Big Ten and the SEC extra automatic bids, we know where the minds are for those two commissioners and where those two conferences want this thing to head. They want it to be more for us, fewer for you, everyone else. And that's what this reeks of. So when you hear Greg Sankey and Tony Batiti and the Big Ten and SEC officials getting together to meet on their own, away from everybody else, and then you hear the commissioners say, well, we just want to see how they're going to pick the teams this year. We don't really want to comment on how it's going to be. But this is exactly what that is, in my opinion, from Sankey. It's him basically trying to lay out a threat, saying that if you guys penalize us for having a 3-loss team lose in the SEC title game, then we're going to go ahead and unilaterally change this playoff system to benefit us, because we're not going to eventually need your approval for it. You're not going to need unanimous approval to do this. And so that's what this is. And so that's what it reeks of to me. It's Sankey is sending a subtle message of what he expects and what he wants, so he can get the college football playoff selection committee to capitulate to his desires.
Yeah. It's just, I get mad, Sam, and maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't get mad, but I get mad. I want to calm down, but having my alma mater be a direct victim of his interference, whether or not they would have made it either way or won, I'm trying to divorce my fandom from my journalism here, and all of it's kind of intersecting in a rage puddle.
It's hard. It's really hard. What happened last year to Florida State, to me, I thought never would happen in the existence of the 14 playoff. I never thought an undefeated power conference champion would get left out. And I still am a little bit shocked that it happened, even sitting here almost a year later, regardless of the reasoning. The bottom line is you earn it on the field, and I thought Florida State did that. And so what happened is this playoff has always been subjective, but we always wanted to believe you could win your way into it. We knew that wasn't the case for the group of 5, but at least as a power conference school, you want to know you could win your way into it. And then that blew that out of the water. And it's like, well, we have the 12 team now. Yes, we have the 12 team, but we've already tried to change it before you've even started it. And I just want everyone to have equal access. That's what I would like. I would like every conference champion in the FBS to have a bid, and then we can have as many at-larges as you want to have. If you want to have a 16 team with 10 conference champions and 6 at-larges, go for it. If you want to have 24 teams, go for it. But I think having that access and making a conference title mean something matters. And I understand why Greg Sankey's also taking this angle and this approach is because the conference is so big and it's so many teams. But this is part of the problem with having conferences this big. We should not have conferences that are 16 teams or 17 teams or 18 teams. It's ridiculous. This is not how it's supposed to be. The NFL doesn't have the NFC East with 10 teams and the NFC South with 7. It's ridiculous. And so, not to say they all have to be the exact same number, but they're way too big, and that creates problems for the playoff, and it creates problems for actually determining a champion when you don't have everybody play each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sam, this week, before we dive into the Big 12, a big old school SWC rivalry is back as a conference game in Texas and Arkansas. I don't expect Arkansas to win this game. I don't expect them also to get blown out like they did against Ole Miss, because I do think they'll have their dander up in Fayetteville, and that crowd will be so deeply into this that they can ride some momentum here. It's very cool to see this back as a conference rivalry. Arkansas has classically played Texas pretty well in the non-con battles that they've had over the years. What do you think about this one coming up?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I do think it's going to be a lot different than it was in 2021. I was there in Fayetteville when that happened, and buddy, I remember Steve Sarkisian at Big 12 Media Days, SEC Media Days this summer, said that Arkansas fans, in his opinion, hated Texas more than they loved their own team. And then the next day, someone asked Sam Pittman about it, and Sam Pittman's like, yeah, it's probably right. He's probably right about that, which blew my mind. But the amount of intensity and vitriol and just the buzz in that stadium that night, and then, of course, they all rushed the field after they won. And not only did they win, they hammered Texas that night. But it was really something to see. And you could get a feel for what the emotions really are like between the Arkansas fans and how they feel about Texas. And so with this being an 11 o'clock game, not a night game like the last one was, I think it'll be tempered down a little bit. And also, this is a lot better Texas team. I do think Texas is going to go in there and handle business. I like the way they looked against Florida last week. And to me, they started last week to look like the team that we saw in the first 6 weeks of the season before they had the Georgia game, before they had to fight and scratch and claw against Vanderbilt. This team's getting a little bit healthy. You started to see Quinn Ewers play a lot better. You started to see everything to start to click again. And I'm not saying that I think they're going to blow out Arkansas necessarily, but I would be surprised if this is a close game in the fourth quarter. I think Arkansas is a good team, but I think Texas is probably fed up with hearing all the criticism of their schedule and their resume this week. And they have the team that can go out there and put their foot down. I think they will.
Well, it's not their fault that Oklahoma and Florida and Mississippi State aren't good. Like, it's not
Michigan.
Michigan. Like, it's not their fault that happened. You know, it's Jim Harbaugh's fault that he left. It's Sharon Moore's fault for going, these three quarterbacks are fine. We'll be fine. Then who needs a quarterback to win the thing? Even though they didn't have a quarterback for 20 years and didn't win anything. Then they got one, won the national title, and then thought, that's a one-off. That was a fluke. So, yeah.
But it's Texas's fault, too, because they didn't show up for a half against Georgia. Yeah. And that's why we're here. And that's the fascinating part about this, is because Texas has 9 games of a body of work, and 8 of those games are against teams that are not necessarily great. And the one great team, used to be a great team that we saw them against, was Georgia, and they looked outclassed for a half of football before they got back into it. And so that's what makes these arguments about resume and how good a team is really fascinating, because do we put more weight on the one Georgia game when maybe they just had a bad night, and especially now that we see that Georgia is not as good as they played that night? Or do we put more weight on the other 8 games in the entire body of work? That's what makes these discussions really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. In the Big 12 this week, Sam, Baylor goes to Morgantown, 0-6 all-time there. Now, they've on a 3-game winning streak, and during that 3-game winning streak, they've started shaking off old traditions that are bad. You know, losing to TCU, at home especially, but losing to TCU, not being able to run the ball, like all these things have started changing for Baylor. Can they go to West Virginia, a team that's also 5-4, and a team that's also started to play better, especially on defense, and shake that monkey off their back finally?
Yeah, I think they can. I think they're playing the type of ball offensively that they can do it. And I think the confidence is there. That's the one thing that to me seems like the really big difference between this team 2 months ago and now is there's confidence and there's belief. I know there were times last year where you just felt like there was this sense of, oh, here we go again. And then the game just kind of gets out of hand. And I thought that they were headed down that path after the Colorado loss, after the Iowa State loss, after the losing streak they had. And they've really picked themselves up off the mat. And there's real, I heard Mac Rhodes talk about it earlier this week. That team hasn't quit on Dave Aranda. And I think that's a testament to those players, a testament to that staff, that they've been able to continue to fight. And so I do think they're good enough to do it. It is fascinating to me in this series that they have not yet won in Morgantown. And I'll tell you what, I was reminiscent about this because when I was writing the preview for the Big 12 games this week and looking back, I was looking back at some of the scores from this series, 70-63, 73-42, 62-38. I mean, they used to be some really, really wild, crazy games between these two teams, of course, in a different era with different coaches, but they have had a lot of close games. I think more than half of these games have been decided by one score or less, and I wouldn't be shocked if that's the case again.
Yeah. There's I know it won't be 70-63. I know that it won't be that, but yeah.
I remember year one, Charlie Brewer as a freshman leading the comeback.
Yeah,
late in the game. I mean, this has been a fun series between these two.
Yeah, it really has. Kansas and BYU is a 2.5-point spread at home, a 9:15 Central kickoff for BYU. That for 9-0 and 3-6, that is really saying something about BYU and the way that they win games. Because I believe, like, if BYU wins, it's probably going to be by a field goal or so. Like, that's what they do, especially lately. And last week was just another thing altogether. First off, your opinions on the Holy War and the end of that game, and then BYU versus Kansas, and Kansas the last couple of weeks starting to look like, oh, wait, this was the team we all picked to be in the mix at the beginning of this thing.
Have you seen the win probability graphs for the games that BYU won against Utah and Oklahoma State? It's insane.
Yeah.
It's absolute insanity. This is very 2022 TCU level stuff that they've got going on. But the Holy War thing, when I was watching that game live, and when they showed the replay, I thought, yeah, the guy grabbed the guy. The defender grabbed the receiver. I thought that was a pretty clear penalty. Now, I understand the frustration with Utah fans of them calling that, but in that situation. But look, I'm very much a believer of take care of business when you have the chance to. They had a whole half to put some points on the board, and they didn't. And you've got to get that done. So I don't love the administrators calling out the refs. I don't love Mark Harlan doing what he did. But at the same time, I really wish we had, and this is a whole other tangent, I really wish we had officials be available to reporters to answer questions after games about these calls, rather than just, okay, you get a pool reporter when you have one controversial call, or we have to get a statement. I really wish we could have some accountability where we could at least ask somebody after games, just like we do the coaches and the players, ask them questions about calls and just get clarity. I think that would do a lot in helping build trust amongst the fans. But this BYU team obviously has some magic. They're obviously able to find ways to win. Kansas, this is not your typical 3-6 football team now, because they're finally figuring it out. It's amazing what happens when you don't throw the ball to the other team. Jalen Daniels is taking care of the ball, and Iowa State was a little bit banged up defensively last week, but he looked like old Jalen Daniels last week. He looked like first half of the 2023 season Jalen Daniels. And if that's how he is going to play on Saturday, BYU's going to have everything it can handle. And so that's why the spread is so close. And that's going to make it's another late kickoff, and we're all going to be up late. And I think we're all going to be watching with bated breath at the end of this one.
Yeah. I think you're right. Not talked about game of the week to me is Arizona State and Kansas State. People, it's like the world has forgotten that ASU's 7-2. Like they've lost 2 games. They lost one to Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, which they didn't have their quarterback for. And then they lost to Tech earlier before they really hit their stride. Look, I think Kansas State wins this game, but Kenny Dillingham has installed some sense of belief in this team and confidence. And, I mean, they play intense. They're physical. They're playing a team that's very much like them this week. Avery Johnson versus Sam Levitt might be the difference in this game because running back to running back, it's pretty awesome, comparison-wise. But I think this one's going to be a slobber knocker in Manhattan.
Yeah, no doubt. And you also wonder how healthy is Cam Scatteraboo when you go into this game. I know he was trying to get in the game last week, but you want him to be at 100% if Arizona State's going to have a chance because the way he runs, I mean, you need every bit of him you can get in this game. This is a testament to Kenny Dillingham and that staff. I thought when he first got the job, I was really impressed with the staff he put together. It was a good mix of guys, some veteran guys, but a lot of younger guys and guys who could really recruit. And the energy level, you can tell that the players have really fed off of that. And they're, like you said, there's a belief. They play hard and they play smart. They play a lot smarter than they did. This team has really matured and I think has gotten better. And they're sitting here. They're still in the Big 12 title game hunt.
Yeah.
They went out. They're still in this conversation. So for them to be at this point and already be postseason eligible is a huge turnaround when we picked them last in the conference. And K-State, obviously, I think that week off was much needed because the last time we saw them was not great. They've got to pick themselves up off the mat after losing that game against Houston. But I do think Avery Johnson will come out better, sharper this time, and he's just got to really take better care of the ball. That's really what it comes down to for him.
Yeah, absolutely he does. Sam, are you on the road this week or at home?
I'm at home this weekend, so I'll be watching it all from the couch.
Me too. Isn't it lovely? Isn't it lovely? Like, look, I watched it all from the couch. I was on the road. I was in Gulf Shores, Alabama, but I wasn't doing anything but hanging out with my buddies. So, yeah, it worked out well. Sam Kahn of The Athletic. Sam, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, you too.
That's Sam Kahn of The Athletic. Next up, Grayson Grundhoefer, Sikkim365.com. Then Payton Soyer of Rankings Right Now. That's all coming up in the next hour. This is 365 Sports.
Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House and unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. And Texas Beef House is now hosting multiple live auctions every single month. They just had a couple of live auctions on site that you also could do online. They're having another one November 20th and 21st next week, right before, of course, the Thanksgiving break. And there will be auctions, live auctions through TexasBeefHouse.com at least twice a month, including in the month of December leading up to Christmas and also the New Year. Live auctions where you set the cost for what you want to pay for ribeyes in New York strip, fillets in flat iron, brisket, tri-tip, ground hamburger patties, or sausage and sausage links, and so much more. I have won through the live auction online. It's a thrill. It's kind of a nice competitive deal. And then you're going to walk away if you feel like that's too much. That's fine. You set the price. They have the phenomenal Texas-raised Wagyu. They're Angus cattle on their ranches just outside of Tyler at TexasBeefHouse.com and the Duvall family.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford. Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate muscle, brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue, cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina, here on a Smokeless Friday. Grayson Grundhoefer, SicEm365.com. Grayson, really quick before we dive into Baylor, I have to mention something. So you were here on Tuesday. We sat at this very table I'm sitting at right now, and you went on an epic rant about your favorite team, the Indianapolis Colts, not starting Anthony Richardson. I woke up on Wednesday or Thursday morning, and they changed their mind. Would you like to admit that you strong-armed the Colts?
It definitely happened. It had to play a factor into it. It was one of the more ridiculous coaching decisions I've ever seen. And yeah, we went on a rant with it. And I woke up the next morning not thinking Shane Steichen was going to do anything. And then, of course, he announces, Anthony Richardson's going to be the starting quarterback and will be the quarterback for the rest of the season. So thank goodness it was music to my ears.
Yeah, I thought so. Grayson, Baylor has never won in Morgantown. Is this the time that streak ends?
It certainly feels that way. Baylor has really had some struggles there. They've gotten blown out, I think, just once or twice, and been in some really good games. When you look at 2012 or 2022 that were really, really close. Even, when Jim Grove was at Baylor, that game was really close in 2016. So they've had moments. They just haven't been able to finish. And so I think going into this game, these are two teams that I think both feel pretty good about themselves. But I think in some regards, West Virginia is just kind of, it just feels like they're kind of just getting by on a schedule type thing. Playing Arizona, playing against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's fine, but, there's a chance neither of those teams end up being bowl teams. And so it's just a matter of, how impressive were those wins? And then you go back and look at, the stats. I think they played well against Arizona, but against Cincinnati, it felt more like Cincinnati gave West Virginia the game than West Virginia took that game. And then you look at the Baylor side of things. This is a team that is riding really high right now. This is the #1 scoring offense in the nation over the last month. They also are #1 in yards over the last month as well. This is literally one of, if not the best offense in the country currently. Or at least they have a potential claim to that based on the numbers. And so I think that makes it really fascinating because it feels like West Virginia's defense, they made some changes, but it feels like they haven't been good all year. And then you look at Baylor and it's like they're just kind of rolling right now. So it feels like a battle of, strength versus weakness, and that it should be a situation that Baylor can definitely attack, which gives me some confidence that Baylor's going to go in there and finally get it done.
What do you think has been the spark in the running game? That it is not just, I thought initially it might have just been a one-off because they had a great matchup, but it's been several games in a row now that they are consistently running the ball well.
Part of it is matchups. The last three teams they've played have been really bad against the run, but to be clear on that, they've been bad against the run, but what Baylor has done to these last three teams is really significant, right? I mean, Oklahoma State's hemorrhaging yards on the ground, so maybe not necessarily that game, but what they did to Tech, a lot of teams have not been able to replicate. What they did to TCU, a lot of teams have not been able to replicate on the ground. So I do think there's something special that is certainly, brewing for Baylor's running attack. I think part of it is Bryson Washington developing into, an older guy. I mean, we all forget he's just a redshirt freshman. He hasn't played a lot. And so he's starting to develop into that role. I think the offensive line is coming together. The addition of Sidney Fugar to the starting lineup at left tackle has been massive. And then I think, during the bye week, I think they did a great job of trying to adjust what they were doing in the run game. They did so much inside zone all the first half of the year. It felt like that was the only way they were going to run the football, aside from, maybe the occasional Sora Robertson run. But since the bye week, they've added some off-tackle running. They've just been a little bit more diverse. And I think because of that, it's really opened up some things, along with improved play by everyone, including the offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. The defense, obviously not where they want it, but they're good in spots, which I think is what you need when you're a developing team, right? They have figured out how to be good in spots. The other thing that's happened is Steve Linton suspended about a month ago. Since that suspension, he has come off with a vengeance. And I think if you look at the attitude that he and Matt Jones have, it's very, very similar of blood in the water, let the sharks go eat.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you could throw Keaton Thomas into that as well. I mean, these guys are just flying to the football, and they're making a lot of plays. And that's great to see. And I think that's kind of been the story of Baylor, I think, this season, is that you see the talent, you see the flashes, you see these guys having the want to, right? But then you're seeing at times just guys not being able to make the play, right? And I think that's where they're still lacking a little bit. Against TCU, I mean, they basically had 2 stops that were taken away because of penalties by Jackie Marshall, who's one of their best defensive players. So you take away those 2 plays, and maybe Baylor has 2 more stops in that game, and maybe TCU only ends up scoring, 24, 27 points. And then you look at that way differently, right? And so it's those type of things, and the fact that they haven't been able to force turnovers, I think, is the other area, and that directly links back to just playmaking, right? Making those plays, making that extra effort to get the ball loose, or attention to detail to put yourself in the right position to get an interception. I think we're seeing, them play solid at times, but it's just the playmaking at times just does not fully happen. And I think that has impacted them quite a bit, along with just, they've still had issues in the secondary. At times they've had issues getting after the quarterback. But I think in general, this is a group that I do feel like has gotten better. It's just there's another level they need to get to that takes it from you're either extremely consistent and getting off the field a lot, or you're creating more havoc. And I don't think they've gotten to either of those quite yet.
Grayson, what is the key for them should Garrett Green, which it looks like he's going to start, what is the key for them with Garrett Green? Because running quarterbacks have given them headaches in the past, including Garrett Green.
Right, and I think it's interesting because Baylor hasn't faced a lot of mobile quarterbacks this year. It's kind of been a lot of pocket passers. Obviously, Jake Retzlaff is a pretty good athlete, but I don't think he's quite the runner that Garrett Green is. And now you look at Baylor's schedule going forward, and they got 3 straight really good running quarterbacks. And so they're going to have to adapt their strategy a little bit. And I think that's going to be a focal point, trying to take away his legs, making sure he doesn't kill them in the run game when they have extra blockers in to, block for him. Trying to make the math add up, as Dave Aranda said this week. And if they can do that, I think they're in a good spot. And then the second area is not allowing explosive plays. Garrett Green was phenomenal on explosive plays over 20-plus yards last year, had 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions a season ago. You fast forward to this year, he's got 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions on throws over 20-plus yards. So if the trend continues, Baylor should have success there. The problem is that's where Baylor's been attacked this season. So something has to give there, right? Either Garrett Green is going to, turn his season around a little bit and hit on some of those explosive plays, or maybe Baylor is going to have success on those. And I think that will be pretty telling as well. as I do think that's the area that Baylor's going to try to take away and force West Virginia to be efficient and get, 3, 4, 5 first downs on drives instead of just giving up, a 50-yard play, and then now they're in the red zone.
So Dominic Richardson has, decided to transfer, and he had fallen to essentially fourth on the depth chart, and he had some injuries that knocked him back there. It wasn't, it's not like an overall performance issue on his part. It's that he had some injuries that two guys in Pendergrass and Washington who took their opportunities and just ran with them. Richard Reese has been a bit of a non-factor this year, which kind of surprises me because I thought that maybe in the new offense he would be more of a factor. But going forward, running back wise, do you think that depth piece not being there hurts them down the stretch, or are they okay?
That's a good question. I hadn't really thought of it like that because, what if they do have an injury or something, or what if a guy misses time? Would you like to have, a guy like Dominic Richardson there? And I think my answer to that would actually be yes, for sure. I think you'd want that veteran experience. And so if they do have issues, if Pendergrass or Washington deal with something over the next few weeks, injury-wise, then yeah, you might have liked to have had that option. But on the flip side, I do think that having him as an option this year versus needing to keep him on the roster again next year, if that makes sense, I think the better choice is if he does go ahead and move on, if that makes sense. And so I think, you look at Baylor's depth chart next year and it's like, well, you got Bryson Washington, you got Dawson Pendergrass, you got Richard Reese, and then you got two outstanding freshmen in Caden Knighton and Michael Turner, two 4-star guys who, I think are going to come in right away and make an impact immediately. And so I think that's where you kind of see the dilemma that maybe Baylor was even faced with. And I think in general, it's better for the program if, he moves on. And I think for Dominic Richardson, it's probably better that he moves on as well so he can, maintain his eligibility and go play somewhere in his final collegiate season. Grayson
Grundhoefer, SicEm365.com. Grayson, great stuff. We'll talk to you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Next up, Payton Soyer jumps aboard, and we're going to talk. He's our chief rankings officer. And we're going to talk about this week's rankings, some of the things that lie ahead, and what's going on. This is 365 Sports.
Announcing Genco's Car Hugger Special. Right now, refinance your auto loan at Genco and get 3 months of no car payments. Plus, your loan will be automatically entered for a chance to win your next 3 car payments on us. Enjoy 5.19% for 48 months and then skip your payments until 2025. Subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Welcome back, 365 Sports, Smokeless Fridays. This could be the last one. Could very well be the last one. We don't know. We'll see what happens tonight, Midway versus Waxahachie. If you are curious about that. But Payton Soyer, Chief Rankings Officer, with us here. RankingsRightNow.com. We've been doing some videos over on the Triple Option channel all week long, last week and this week, and we'll continue on throughout the season with Payton as we diagnose the rankings. Payton, for people who haven't seen those, what was your biggest surprise? And I know the conundrum going into the week was Ole Miss and Notre Dame, seeing as Notre Dame has 1 loss, Ole Miss has 2.
Yeah, the big ones were obviously that Miami and Georgia lost. And the biggest question that I had was our algorithm predicted that they would be 11 and 12 with the same ranking. Georgia has 11, Miami at 12. Miami dropped to 9 and Georgia dropped to 11. And they dropped to 12. And I don't understand that at all. If you're going to go off of strength of schedule, or Georgia, that's Georgia's second loss, that's only Miami's first loss, then why wasn't Miami ahead of Georgia in the first place? Like, I don't understand why Miami, who lost to unranked Georgia Tech, and Georgia, who lost to a highly ranked Ole Miss, why does Georgia get punished harder in the rankings than a Miami team? That made no sense to me whatsoever. And then you have a little bit in the middle with Indiana, BYU, and Tennessee. They're like flip-flopping. Same thing. Tennessee starts ahead of them. Tennessee has a good win. Indiana, BYU have okay wins. All of a sudden, Tennessee's on the other side of that. Not 100% sure where that is. And Tennessee had to play against Mississippi State. So our algorithm had a little bit of bad predictions in that middle ground, and I can understand why. Usually, as like a data scientist or a mathematician, you try and evaluate why your errors are so bad. And in this case, I didn't really fault the algorithm that bad on it. The algorithm's predictions completely aligned with what I would have anticipated. So it seems like the playoff committee is a little bit more interested in closer games than big blowouts. For example, Tennessee beat Mississippi State by like 23-24, I want to say. Not enough. You need to blow them out. And I think we saw that a couple years ago with Nick Saban. Nick Saban used to run up the score on a lot of teams. And I think he kind of said, well, you need to put up 60 points in order for the selection committee to think that you're a legitimate team. If you only win by 20, they might say, oh, well, BYU against Utah, that was a close game. And so BYU deserves a little bit more credit for muscling that one out versus playing a really, really low in the bottom of the rankings team like Mississippi State. You gotta blow them out. So those were the things that kind of surprised me after what I saw on Tuesday.
Yeah, you looking at your projected rankings right now, the top 5 is static for you. And then if Georgia wins as predicted, they have a big jump and kind of leap over BYU, who will drop in spite of a win because Georgia's Georgia. And I would assume that would be the controversy of the week, and that you would have a 10-0 team with a 2-loss team right there.
Well, and that depends, and we can get into this in a little bit with the what-if simulation tool, but as of right now, BYU is a 2-point favorite to Kansas at home. Name any other team in the top 15, maybe outside Boise State, that would be only a 2-point favorite against Kansas at home.
Probably nobody.
I can't think of anyone off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why they're dropping a spot, right? Georgia is flying up there in those rankings. Say, hey, if you're going to beat the number 7 ranked team, you should jump up a lot, right? That's a highly ranked team. We saw that with Ole Miss last weekend, right? They moved up to 11 from 16. You're going to jump up a good amount of spots there. But BYU is taking that step back because A, that's where Georgia is planned to be in the next rankings. And B, according to this projection, this single projection, BYU is only going to have a 2-point win against Kansas. And I think a lot of people, if we saw BYU only win by 2 against Kansas, we wouldn't be saying, I mean, we kind of just talked about it with Utah, but we wouldn't be saying, man, what a great win for BYU. Everyone's been smoking Kansas this year, right? They've been hot the last couple of games, but they have really underwhelmed everyone from where their expectations were based off of last year coming into this year. They were highly ranked in the AP poll to start the year. So that's the main reason why BYU's taking that step back.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. All right, let's get into some what ifs.
Let's do it.
Now, I just ran this one myself, but we're not sharing my screen. So I'm very curious on Arizona State, who, should they win the game, and I put in a score of 31-27 for Arizona State and Kansas State, will they get into the rankings?
Okay, great. So we have Arizona State and Kansas State, and I heard you guys talking about this earlier on the show. What did you put in for the score?
I put in 31-27.
31-27. So we're going to do 31-27. By the way, this is rankingsrightnow.com. This is the what if simulation tool, free for anyone who has a login on the website. So we go in here, we're updating the score of 31-27 for Arizona State. We're going to go ahead and run the simulation, and immediately we get back what the projected rankings are going to be for this game. Now, Arizona State creeping into the top 25 right there. And then you have Kansas State dropping all the way down to 25. So that puts them both in competition if Arizona State can pull that one out. And we can even extend out the top 25 to the all teams, so you can get a little bit of idea of 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. So this is where we're kind of sitting right here with the bottom of that bucket. But yes, according to the algorithm, if ASU can pull this one out, they will be a ranked team going into Tuesday's poll release.
All right, let's flip Georgia and Tennessee, and let's give that game a score of 24-20.
Great. So let's do 24-20. 20. I'm assuming Tennessee 24.
Tennessee
right?
24-20. Yes.
Yep, 20. Okay, great. Run the simulation. And then just as a reminder, you can always look at your altered games right here to make sure you're what exactly you've changed for this simulation. So Tennessee moves up ahead of BYU. So, and Indiana. And if you remember the first rankings release, that's where Tennessee was. Tennessee was already ahead of Indiana and BYU. After last weekend, Indiana fell below them. And now, according to this, if they can beat Georgia, they would stay ahead of Indiana and BYU. I think once again, that also maybe not as controversial, right? To have a Tennessee team beat a Georgia team that's been highly ranked the entire year, ahead of undefeated Indiana, ahead of undefeated BYU. But I think in this scenario, that makes a lot of sense for them to stay 5. I think the real college football fans would still be yelling that Penn State's a little bit too high there, but that's where we're sitting at right now.
All right, let's flip Kansas and BYU.
Okay, great. So this one will have a lot more of an impact. So here we go. What do we think? Oh, just flip it?
Just flip it.
Perfect.
Yeah, 30-28.
Easy. 30-28. Run the simulation. BYU dropping all the way to 13, which makes things really interesting. You also have Kansas State right on their heels. So that's a lot of Big 12 drama right there. Kansas does not creep into the top 25 with this win. They've had way too many losses.
Well, I mean, they'd be 4-6. So
there's just no way. So I bet you they would make up a lot of ground if we really wanted to go ahead and find them. But I think that really BYU has a lot of ground lost there. Speaking of Big 12, CU is projected to drop down 2 spots as well. And this really surprised me. So the reason for this, and just very similarly to what we just talked about with Tennessee, right? Tennessee really beat Mississippi State bad, but not enough. So here we are, and we're looking at CU playing Utah this week. And Utah, the projected score of that game, let's just go ahead and go back to the home team or homepage real quick. According to Vegas, right now, CU is a 12-point favorite at home against Utah. That drops them down 2 spots in the rankings. I would actually be very surprised by this, but this is what the algorithm is showing right now. The reason being is that South Carolina plays Missouri. Missouri is a ranked team. They're predicted to have a 14-point win over Mizzou. And you have Clemson with a 3-spot jump as well. Clemson is playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, has been hot all year until the last 2 weeks, right? They've completely fallen apart. So Pittsburgh is still deemed as a highly ranked team, just not in the top 25. They're probably a top 50. So if Clemson can go on the road and have a 12-point win against Pitt, South Carolina can beat a ranked team by 14 at home. What is CU at home with only a 12-point win against Utah that has done nothing right outside of the last 5 weeks and almost squeaked one out against BYU? I think this CU win against Utah would have meant so much more if Utah had just beaten BYU. And we've talked about this throughout the year. It is who you beat and when you beat them. If CU plays Utah much earlier in the year and has a 12-point win, I think they are already valued much higher than going into this game right now and saying that's not a real Utah team. You're going to have to put up way more than 12 to really get our attention and say that these 2 wins right next door to you are not nearly as impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you see anything else? Do you see upsets that could happen that we're not talking about right now? There's not a lot of games that are in that realm this week. Now, that means crazy things could happen, but I think we've kind of covered all of the upset possibilities, right?
Yeah, I think the only other sleeper alert I can really think of is Arkansas, just because they've done it before. And they haven't had a great year, but they're competitive. So a noon kickoff game, that might be a little bit of a sleeper for a lot of people. I think a lot of people just might overlook this. It's hard. I mean, these are 18 to 22-year-olds that we're talking about right now, unless you're Cam Rising and you're like 30. But if you have something, if this is a night game, you can hype up these kids and get them really excited to play. That one might be a little bit of a lull, right? Purdue's not going to compete with Penn State. Wisconsin will hang in with Oregon, but I think Oregon has too much firepower. I don't think Ohio State's going to have any problem with Northwestern, right? I doubt Alabama's going to have a little bit of a problem with Mercer, but that would be the biggest story out of the entire year if that happened. I don't think that's going to happen. But other than that, like Virginia had a nice win against Pitt last weekend. I don't really see, like you said, this is a lull of a week, if you ask me, but we've had like 2 or 3 weeks this year where it's like, this is going to be a lull. And it was just chaos from start to finish, right? So there's so many noon games that I'm seeing that I'm like, I wonder if that actually might lead to something a little bit crazy just because we're dealing with a bunch of college kids.
Okay. We just got a $20 super chat that says, and it's in burnt orange too, that says, can you say something nice about Texas? So here's what I will say nice about Texas. They are very, very, very good. They are extremely good. And I I do think that they've gotten a raw deal on the perception of their schedule this year, because it is not their fault that Michigan, Mississippi State, Florida, and
Michigan,
and Oklahoma are all
right.
Meh. That's not their fault. That's not their fault. Now, shouldn't have gotten worked for a half at Georgia, but even still, you're still number 3. That all being said, those are the nice things. Can we run a simulation where if Arkansas pulls this off, I want to see where Texas plummets to.
That being said,
if something bad happens to them, not saying I'm wishing this, Choatiken, that I'm not saying I hope for it to happen. But there was my nice thing.
Texas down to 12 if they lose this one to Arkansas.
Yeah.
Which seems about right. But once again, right? I was surprised, right? You had Miami dropping down to 9. I don't understand why. It's not like Miami has played flawless football the entire year and then stumbled up at the very end against Georgia Tech, right? Why would you only fault Miami 5 spots, but Georgia gets put right at the very edge of elimination? And as a matter of fact, they would have been eliminated. They would have been the first team out of the college football playoff this weekend, because Boise was sitting at 13 and they would have been the group of 5 that would have gotten in. So I just don't understand it. So, I hope they're not evaluating based off of who you've lost to this year versus who you've beaten, right? It is a very strange scenario to say Georgia absolutely stomped all over Texas, and Texas is 9 spots higher in the rankings than Georgia. That's a very strange situation. And that's not from a week 1 or week 2 win. That's from like a 2 weeks ago win. So I really do see that Texas is holding steady in that spot. As we saw on the current rankings, they're right up there still in those top 3 spots. But, they're on very wobbly ground, where I would say Ohio State and Oregon, they can lose a game and people are not going to overreact. I'm very interested going into next weekend on that Ohio State-Indiana game, on what the implications of that loss would be, because I don't think that you're going to send Ohio State all the way down to 10 or 11 or 12. They might just flip-flop with Indiana, in my opinion. So it'll be very interesting to see where that lands.
Do you think, looking ahead, this is something for us to think about as we go into next week? And I'm sure we will do a video on this, and then we'll do it next week as well. But do you think that the Ohio State-Indiana game will be weighted the same way no matter who loses? Because they're right there next to each other in the rankings, essentially.
Similar, very, very similarly, right?
Yeah.
That's how the algorithm works. It does very focus on who you're playing and where they align in the rankings. So if you have 2 teams that are right next to each other, the algorithm is very based off of what we learned, right? And I think that's how the AP votes. That's how the selection committee votes. It's very much, what did we learn about you? When Notre Dame plays Florida State and wins by 50, they don't move up that high in the rankings. Why? Because we didn't learn anything. You haven't proven yourself. When you have 2 big teams clash against one another, right? As long as one of them doesn't get completely blown out, you have something to say, okay, we've learned something. They're competitive, they're tough, they're strong. Now, if you get blown out, if you're the 2 ranked team, and let's say Indiana's 5 or 6 at the end of this weekend, if Indiana blows out Ohio State can take a big fall, because you've just proved that you're not competitive with the number 5. But if you're saying you are competitive with number 5, then maybe you just flip-flop with them and say, well, maybe they're 2 and you're 5. But there's nothing else really to it more than that. So I'm very curious on where that's going to be the main talking point about all of college football on next weekend. So that one I'm most interested in. This one, there's just not enough big games that are happening outside of Georgia and Tennessee. But like we've said, we've done that a couple times this year, and then by next week, and we're like, oh my gosh, that was not what we expected.
Yeah. Okay, Payton, before we wrap up, I mean, I got a $20 super chat to say something nice about Texas. Not to compare them, just throw out, like you or Garrett, throw out just anybody that, or anything that would be, considered unlikable to a point. Like, I'm not gonna say anything about Hitler, but like to a point, like, and I'll try to say something just for fun here. What can I say nice about someone or something?
Tim Tebow.
You know what? Let me tell you, Tim Tebow was the best at 1-yard touchdowns of anybody ever. Like, you could not stop him for 1 yard.
Better than Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, look.
We're expanding out the horizon there in football, but
yes, better. Like Jalen Hurts. Look, there's no Jalen Hurts without Tim Tebow.
Okay.
Jalen Hurts watched Tim Tebow and said, okay, here's how I can make my body style work for this. Yeah. So there you go. I said a nice thing about Tim Tebow. I can do it. And for $20, I will say a nice thing about anyone. So, or almost anyone. Don't want to say nice things about Dr. Pepper. Old Barncat, if you don't like it, I haven't had one in 6 years because I actually had one recently because I don't really drink. I'm more of a seltzer guy now. And go ahead and make fun of me all you want, chat room. But
I will.
Yeah. I love Dr. Pepper. I miss Dr. Pepper. I used to, honestly, if you showered me in it, I would be fine. Especially the Dr. Pepper cherry. Really loved that. I thought that was quite good. Okay, yeah. So I mean, that's not. I was saying say something like candy corn. Like candy corn has done a really good job of marketing really crappy candy to people who seem to like it. I don't understand. They've figured it out. I don't know. That's good.
I think you've officially crossed the line with the candy corn. Nice things about candy corn. But yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. That's going to be a thing from now on. I'll see how many please say nice things about something I can get. And maybe the going rate doesn't have to be $20, but it could be lower. I will say nice things about something if you pay me. Absolutely. Payton Soyer, rankingsrightnow.com. I burned through all my my freebie rankings this week just in the few minutes before the segment. So it is so fun. It is so fun to do. And if you're sitting around thinking about it, what happens here, it is super easy to use too. Sometimes these websites come along and say this, and Payton, let me tell you, you guys have made it so simple to use. It's not one of those things that's overwrought when you get to it. So
worked really hard. This is the first year too. We're learning from everyone's feedback, what they like, what we don't like, what's important to us, what's not important to us. We have more and more people playing in the College Rankem Challenge each week, and then we announce the winner every week in our newsletter. It's been a ton of fun. I've been having a blast with it. So thank you for the nice feedback. Thank you for saying something nice. I appreciate it.
There we go. It took nothing. It just, I did that one on my own. That was a true thing. Although now, after I said all those other things, people may not believe me. I get it. I might have been the boy who cried wolf. But no, it truly is genuine. Payton, I will talk to you this weekend. We'll figure out next week. And check out Payton Monday through Thursday. We're doing segments we put on the Triple Option channel. If we have time, we sneak them into the back end of the show. Wednesday and Thursday, we didn't because I was too verbose, but they're really good stuff. He kind of breaks down little different issues, reactions to the poll, things to look for, all of that. You essentially Tuesdays we've kind of made the what if simulation, kind of a day, or Tuesday and Thursday to that. Monday is what to look for. Wednesday is okay, here's where it is. What I would recommend people specifically this week to go look at your video that's what is a ranking, because you really do propose a fundamental question.
I work on these things all day, and I struggle to come up with a definition, right? What really is a ranking? Is it this team would beat this team? Because I don't think anyone would agree with where the top, if you ordered those, one would beat two, that would beat three, that would beat four. I don't see that being the case. So what is it? I don't know. That's what makes this so much fun, and trying to establish an algorithm that will find the patterns on how people vote, but I don't know truly what the value of a ranking is, especially in college football.
Also, on that video, you get to see one of Peyton's kids, a toddler, at a full dead sprint in the background. Just
it's nothing but madness here.
In frame, boom, just a dart. And here for me, like, I don't know you, if for me, I'd be like, let's get this kid in the backyard. We're going to get their 40 up.
Oh, yeah.
To about, because it was some good, I mean, it was some good toddler speed, some good strides.
Yeah, the only word is potential. There's just nothing but potential in those legs.
That's right. Payton Soyer rankings right now.com. You'll see him more and more throughout the Triple Option and, of course, 365 Sports. Payton, have a great weekend. I'll talk to you, buddy.
You too. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Payton Soyer rankings right now. Coming up next, Evan Abrams of Action Network. We're going to follow him up with Connor Orgera of Saturday Down South, and then Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country. And then, look, I'm just going to warn you, you can turn it off, but Florida State fired, a chunk of their coaching staff this week. I help rebuild it today. Most of it's probably not going to go down the way that I
Probably not. It's fun.
But, look, I just said, like, here's how you do it. Here's how you get out of 1-9. You got to take big swings to get out of 1-9 after 13-0. So that's coming up. I decided to do it on a Friday where I couldn't get crap from these two. I got enough from Garrett. I got enough from him. He was like, you sure you want to do this? I was like, shut up. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. We're not, we're not doing it. Okay. When we come back, Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ, really interesting thoughts on a couple of games this week, including Texas and Arkansas, and how that number has moved down towards Arkansas. This is 365 Sports.
Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. General Sales Manager David Gray and his great staff, and the CEO GM is Ted Teague. I have a 2017 Ford Explorer pre-owned that I bought on their lot back during COVID in 2020. I love it. I love it. But all of a sudden, I noticed I was having my coolant light come on a little bit more than you ever want. It one time's too much. So I went and took it to the dealership, dropped it off, and they were going to see if it's something minor. Is it a hose that's loose? Whatever it might be. And Ted Teague said, while we have it, while we're looking at your car, I want you to drive this 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited, the L Edition 4x2. This is a phenomenal vehicle. You've heard about the Jeep Wagoneers, a couple of different styles that they have. Absolutely luxurious SUV. I thought that that's what I was driving with this Grand Cherokee Limited Edition Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited 4x2. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, the service department, the vehicles, sometimes between 350 and 400 vehicles on the lot. Whether it's Ram trucks, whether it's Jeep product or Chrysler pre-owned, they have it. So ask for David Gray, ask for one of the great sales representatives for you. Test drive this Grand Cherokee, the Jeep Grand Cherokee L Limited 4x2. It's phenomenal at Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with a Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marcos Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marcos. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Abrams, Action Network HQ with us. Evan, this is not the most glamorous week for the big games, but there are some interesting ones. And we'll start with the biggest one first, Tennessee and Georgia. We have no idea if Nico Amaliava is going to play, which would have, it's affecting how I feel about the game overall, which I assume I'm not the only one. I'm sure Vegas feels the same way. What are the numbers showing us about the feeling on this? Because I know Georgia is a pretty substantial favorite right now because we don't know that information.
Yeah, at the moment, it's the most bet game of any game in college football this weekend, which isn't a shock to anyone. Like you said, it's the most high profile. It's also probably an elimination game considering both sides and the losses and where we enter at the moment. I think based off the market, we're going to assume Nico's going to play. Now, obviously, anything can happen at this point, but Georgia was as high as 11.5. Now it's down to 9.5, and you're seeing some Tennessee action come in. The markets are pretty tight here. So that would be my assumption. Now, in terms of what I think is going to happen on the field, like I said, Georgia elimination game from an emotional standpoint and a motivational standpoint, this game means more, I think, to Georgia than it probably does to Tennessee. And then on the field, obviously Carson Beck has seen some, let's call it maybe some primetime ghosts of sorts recently, and Tennessee's defensive line could maybe bring some havoc. But the one thing I do kind of lean on here, Josh Heupel's offense, when facing this Schumann, Kirby Smart defense, 41-17, 27-13, 38-10. It's not a lot of points from Tennessee's side of the ball. So they've done a good job there. And then two nuggets I'll give you, including the postseason. Kirby Smart, 32-18 against the spread against ranked opponents. Georgia coming off a loss, 12-3 straight up, 9-6 against the spread, and 11-1 and 7-5 as a favorite. So I do kind of lean Georgia in this spot. Now, obviously, maybe Nico being confirmed, the spread kind of adjusts a little bit, but I think I kind of like the dogs here.
Yeah, and they're also coming off getting stung pretty bad too. So that to me, this is a Georgia team that doesn't lose 2 games in a row quite often historically. Those kind of things. I know that's not there's not a metric for that, but when you have that, it's that gut feeling about the bet, right? Is that some of that too?
Some of it, but also think about this. Look at Tennessee's. Okay, so Josh Heupel used to be king of first half. I had been touting this earlier in the year where I believe he was close to 65-70% against the first half spread. He went 3 games without scoring in the first half this year. They've lost a bunch in a row first half ATS. It just seems like it's a bit of a different team, at least first few games, than what we've seen recently. And that plays a little bit to me in terms of trying to go with the dogs and the defense there more than that Vols offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so another interesting one to me, and maybe only me, is Texas and Arkansas. And it is a rivalry game, and Arkansas is coming off getting absolutely shredded by Ole Miss. Which I don't think that bodes well for them here, but I can't go all in with Texas just yet until I see them play an offense like this. They have, and it's not their fault, but they've been kind of lucky to not see a dynamic offense really this year. So I don't know, if I'm betting, with a big number like they have, or if I'm looking at it and going, well, I'm not going to predict Arkansas to win, but when it's 17-18 or however it's moved, do I think that they could they could keep this below 17 points? Like, part of me thinks that they could.
The interesting thing, and you just mentioned it, so the spread was as high as 17. Now you're looking at a spread about 12.5, and the markets are relatively tight. Tickets and money, neither has hit a threshold of 60%, even though we do see some smart money coming in on Arkansas to cover. You have more tickets on Texas. You have the money coming in on Arkansas, is what it looks like at the moment. But you kind of said it with Texas. Of the 8 SEC teams ranked in the current top 25, Texas has only played one and lost in convincing fashion in that game on their home field. So they haven't exactly played great teams. And Arkansas, we just probably saw the worst version of them. But I also kind of expect this to be Arkansas's Super Bowl. This is going to be the game they've got to be ready for. And they've got, they've got good coordinators, let's call it, to probably enter the contest. From Petrino to Williams, I think they're going to be ready here. And you look at Sam Pittman, 22-10 against the spread as an underdog, including 10-3 ATS when catching double digits. Now, I bet that 14 number. I bet the 14.5 number. You're at 12.5 now. I don't want to recommend anything under 13, since not a ton of key numbers when you talk about college football, just because scores are so erratic. But 13 does come into play a little bit there. So I would like that, but I kind of lean Arkansas here. I kind of want the points. I haven't seen the best out of Texas, and I think Arkansas can at least keep it close. But like you said, I don't think I'm calling an upset here.
Yeah, exactly. They hate Texas.
Yeah.
And I think Texas kind of forgot about that for a little bit, even though they have, but they hate them. Like, they may be like 4th on Texas's rivalry list. They're Arkansas, that's their one.
And Arkansas's played well against Texas.
Yeah.
I believe even, obviously this goes way back and the teams are completely different, but they play them close historically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some of those things, you can just find two teams that played each other enough, and doesn't matter, like, coaching staff, offense, defense, it's just always going to be weird when those two teams play. Texas and Arkansas is a little bit like that. Baylor plays West Virginia on the road. 2 weeks ago, they shook the TCU monkey off their back. They've been terrible against TCU. They finally beat them. Of course, it took a last-second field goal to do it. We've got a Baylor student in the studio right now who rushed the field. It was his happiest moment of his life. But West Virginia has been a bugaboo for them. Both these teams are 5-4. Baylor 0-6 all-time in Morgantown. This team has been shaking monkeys off their back, but for whatever reason, they get in that altitude, or they smell moonshine. I don't know what happens. They do not play well against the Mountaineers on the road.
You're gonna, if you like Baylor, and your friend in the building is gonna like probably what I'm saying here. So Baylor got as high as 3, now down to 1.5. I don't think bettors really want to take a side here. Markets are very tight. I don't think we are comfortable or confident in either team to be able to kind of push it one side or the other. But at least as of late, I'm not really sure we all realize, except for maybe your friend, how well Baylor's playing. Mm-hmm. Bears have won 3 straight. Will come off a bye, do a trip to Morgantown, which I like in this one. And if you look at the Mountaineers, they return home after a grueling 2-game road trip that saw them win back-to-back 1-possession games against reeling teams, right? Like, we don't think much of Arizona, nor do we think too much of Cincinnati. So I think it really kind of tells to both opponents and both teams in this one. And then Baylor's defense ranks in the top 10 nationally in rush success rate and has only allowed 3.8 yards per attempt this year, which is great against a West Virginia run-first offense. And the stat I'll give you, Neil Brown at West Virginia and Troy, just 6-12 ATS as a home dog, including 0-3 against the number this season. I just like Baylor. I'm going to wait a minute. The line is dipping 3 to 1.5. I think it's just a money line play. I don't know if I need to get really involved in the number here, but I do think it might be a little back and forth. So I'm going to look to bet it live as well, assuming West Virginia gets into the game and maybe you get a plus number on Baylor at some point being on the road.
Yeah, well, he's good. That's good news. Look at, and Baylor's playing. They're both playing for bowl eligibility. Baylor is playing honestly, if they win, then the coaching staff can take a deep breath. Like, that means that there's no chance of missing a bowl now and getting fired. So I think that's a big motivator as well, that you can finally, scratch that off the list.
For both teams, this could be their Super Bowl. So, you know what I mean? Both teams aren't going far places here, but a win to get bowl eligible, a win over, I don't want to call it a rival, but a team on your level at this point in the season will mean a lot to both staffs.
BYU and Kansas. Kansas is 3-6, but the last couple of weeks, they've started to look like we thought they were going to look. Jalen Daniels is playing like Jalen Daniels again. There were some really questionable coaching decisions in the middle of that game by Lance Leipold and staff, but they held off. Jalen Daniels was that guy again that we all expected to see. They beat Iowa State. BYU, they win close games. That's what they do. They're inexplicable. Like, it's inexplicable how they've been able to do this. But they're not like for a 9-0 team and a 3-6 team. This is a smaller spread than you would think most of the time, especially given that this is at night in Provo. Like, that's where they're the best. But what's going on here?
Well, this is a fun one because I told you that Tennessee and Georgia was the most bet game in college football this weekend. This is number 2, and this game being at 10:15 p.m. Eastern and right now having the second most tickets. A little bit of into the process here. Usually the 12 o'clock games get more tickets early on just because most people bet on those before the other ones. This being a 10:15 game and having the second most tickets, a lot of action, a lot of people interested in this one. And BYU has moved from 3.5 to 2.5. Bets coming in on Kansas. And this is really just a matchup of the unluckiest team in the country, in my opinion, in Kansas, and probably one of the luckiest ones in BYU. One team, 0-5 in one possession games. The other, 4-0 with improbable walk-off touchdowns, right? Oklahoma State, Utah. It's just on and on and on. BYU, I've been betting against them. I got lucky a few weeks. I've gotten unlucky in others. I just don't feel like they're as good as their record. It's simple. Against FBS foes, BYU coach, just 8-15 ATS as a home favorite of 3 or more, including 0-9 over his past 9 in this situation. So laying points even in that Provo spot, I'm not fully interested in it. And then you look at this. Since 2022, Kansas, 2-1 straight up, 2-0-1 ATS when listed as an underdog. The week after winning as a straight up dog. Between 1990 and 2021, they were 2-19 in that spot. Okay, so I just feel like Kansas is a different animal, and I think the BYU train has to stop at one point because of the luck on both sides here. And when I'm betting, I'm really looking at just luck on some level, right? Like, things have to come back to a median, and BYU's had a lot of bounces go their way, while Kansas, I'm not sure their record represents what they are as a team. So I would like the 3, and I think it's important this one, but I do kind of like Kansas.
There you go. All right. Last one, Arizona State, Kansas State. This is a sneaky good game this week. This is an Arizona State team that Kenny Dillingham has them rocking and rolling. Cam Scadaboo's going to play. This is going to be a run-first game on both sides of the ball. So I would expect that, like, it's one of those things where, like, you think about it, time of possession is going to be a thing, and the number might be lower. But then again, there could be some big plays in it as well. This is a tough one. This is a tough one to pick here for me.
Yeah, I think the handicap is tight here. So the spread was 9.5, now down to 7.5, obviously in favor of Kansas State. Lots of bets on Kansas State, even though the market has come down a little bit, which is interesting. So I do think off the top we need to give a little bit of credit to Kenny Dillingham. Arizona State being 7-2 in this situation, but 5-1 in one possession games, you just have to give credit to them. Beating Utah, but they have beat Utah without rising. Beat UCF, even though UCF had a 406 to 260 net yardage advantage. Missed 2 field goals, gave up a block punt, interceptions, more and more and more that probably came back to tell you that UCF played a tighter game than maybe what we saw on the field. I would also expect a rested and healthy Avery Johnson to use his legs more. Their Big 12 title hopes are really on the line here. They're in the balance, and I think they need this one, and they're going to play like it. I know the number is a little iffy, but if this gets down to 7, it's the play I like on Kansas State. Chris Kleiman, 16-6 ATS as a home favorite, covering by almost 9 points per game. I think Kansas State should have no issues moving the ball against a very mediocre Arizona State defense. Dillingham's done an amazing job, but I do think this one is a little bit too high of a climb.
Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ, the best in the biz, man. Love everything that you guys are doing. Love the segment. I feel I've gone from novice to whatever the level is above novice in the couple months.
When we were entering this Kansas State game, I almost wanted to ask you your opinion on the game. Believe me, you have gotten really far here, and I think this is really good back and forth. And listen, as the college season's gone on, it's been very interesting, some of these lines and markets, so it's been fun.
Yeah, Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ. We'll have him again. He's one of the best, if not the best. I'm going to call him the best because he's on our show. Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ. Thank you, Evan. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
You as well. Enjoy the weekend in Slate, guys.
Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ. We've got more coming up. This is 365 Sports.
I've had a lot of ailments. My goodness. Hey, this is David Smoke. I'm 65 years old, and I'm going to have some things break down. I work out still most every day. I can't run like I used to. My hip is bothering me, and I've had injections in my back. In fact, one back in April up in Dallas, and it worked, but it did not solve the problem. So I need to get another MRI of my lower back, my lower lumbar, and also at some point figure out, is that what is affecting me having this throbbing pain? And it's more often than I even admit in my right hip. Ideal MRI set me up with an MRI last week thanks to my doctor calling them and saying, this is what we need from your state-of-the-art imaging machines. So, Ideal MRI, $497 or less every single time. Dr. Rob Maxey and his ownership and partnership, they have done a phenomenal job. This saves you money, a bunch of money. The average is $1,100, and you don't pay anything more and sometimes less with IdealMRI.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Midway Athletics and UBO Business Services are two names that exude winning. From Midway's top Central Texas Star test scores to college-like extracurricular facilities and UBO Business Services' industry-leading customer service scores, you can trust in these two winning programs. Best of luck to Coach Joe Gillespie and the Midway Panthers. And look at your sticker on your office equipment. If it does not say UBO, call Midway Class of 2020, Duff, Daxon, Dane, or Sean Hunt at 254-709-2101 or ubeo.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Connor Orgera, Saturday Down South, joins us now as he does every other week. And Connor, you and I have talked about it all season. Now, it happened last week when you weren't on, but Billy Napier is staying at Florida. Now, there's a confluence of circumstances that have led to this. I don't think this season really has anything to do with it anymore. I think it has more to do with Ben Sass is retired, although I think they asked him to do that. There's a big controversy there, interim president. Scott Strickland now under the gun. The Todd Golden situation is very strange and unresolved. And if they're going to hire a new football coach, it's probably not going to be under an interim president. But your thoughts on Billy Napier being back at Florida, and actually it's meant some good things in recruiting here in the last couple of days as well.
Yeah, I don't know if it's specifically one thing. And I saw a lot of people pointing to the fact that we're going to have this $20 million revenue sharing that's going to go back to the athletes very soon. And I saw people saying, well, that people are just going to not want to pay these big bucks. Like, well, no, Florida had the money ready to go early in the year. It's not like all of a sudden they saw that and said, whoa, we can't pay this all of a sudden. No, I think they were ready to go. They were ready to make a decision on that if it had continued. Now, Florida was a better football team in the month of October. They've since been hit by a lot of injuries, and they're just not necessarily able to stay on the field with contenders in the way that they were probably during that stretch. But I think that there is a desire to not want to be the program that just continues to fire coaches. I think there is a strong desire from whoever's making those decisions, which I don't believe is strictly in the hands of Scott Strickland. I think that they want to be the program that feels like we gave this guy a chance and we gave him all the resources that he could have possibly had, and we didn't pull the plug too early. Because if and when Billy Napier's time at Florida doesn't come, if and when it comes to an end, it will not be from a lack of resources. I mean, they invested $60 million into him. That's not even including, support staff and all that. And I think they want to see this DJ Lagway thing through. They want to see what it looks like when he gets the full reps and he's the face of the program. They didn't have that this year for the full season, obviously, with Graham Mertz. But I think they just wanted to be able to sort of kick the can and say, what's the hurry to fire it? How imminent does this really feel? If it had stayed as bad as it did early in the season, I think we'd be having a different discussion. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, there's a ton of different things that happen for coaches to stay. And look, there's a lot of coaches we thought for sure this would be the end for them this year. Look, Dave Aranda here at Baylor seems to have brought himself out of it. I would say that I would put that at 2% right now, and it would take a collapse down the stretch here for a team that's playing really well for that to happen. Sam Pittman, I would say that they get to a bowl game, then, I mean, why are you firing Sam Pittman after last year, and especially bringing in a guy like Taylon Green? Yeah, I think that Arkansas situation, you could probably find a lot of Arkansas fans that are hoping that it's the end of the Sam Pittman era. It kind of came and went. And at the same time, they have a really good chance to be able to go 7-5 and maybe get an 8th win in a bowl game, which would be double what they did last year. I still think, despite the fact that obviously Travis Williams didn't have the best showing in that 63-point effort that they allowed to Ole Miss, I still think that Travis Williams is one of the top up-and-coming defensive minds in the sport. You feel good about the direction of the offense with Bobby Petrino running it. The Taylon Green thing, I think for the most part has worked out about as well as you could have hoped for. Now, he's got to be able to stay healthy, and the mistakes kind of are what they are at this point, but it's still been an upgrade. And I think Sam Pittman has done enough to be able to save his job, barring a collapse down the stretch. And it makes you wonder, man, are we going to have 16 jobs in the SEC that are still occupied by the same head coach going into next year? Because all these guys that you were talking about coming into the season, Clark Lee is another one of them, who have gotten themselves off the hot seat. And that is just so unbelievably rare. I think the only time it's happened in the last 18 or 19 years in the SEC was after 2018. So, and it could be like that across all of college football. We might not have this massive coaching carousel. And I don't know that it's directly related to that aforementioned revenue sharing thing, or if it's just simply coaches that we thought were going to be on hot seats have kind of coached their way off of them. Well, also, if there's no SEC jobs open, I mean, that creates a ripple effect. And the only one, right now, I don't think we're talking about hot seats for this year, but we're talking about, okay, how long does Hugh Freeze have at Auburn? Sure. How long is that leash? They're not going to do it this year, especially if he keeps the recruiting class that he's got right now. They at least have to see that through. But, that administration and their fan base, they don't care when they pull the trigger. If they've made up their mind, it's made up. There's not rationale or talking them out of it or hey, why don't you wait a week? No, it's done. That's how they are. But, I mean, if nobody goes, then – okay, then you're looking at retired coaches or other situations, a few here and there. But,
I don't think Venables is going to go anywhere at Oklahoma, but he's
Agreed.
kind of in the same situation of, okay, well, we'll give you a chance to get the talent back in here, but that's it. Lincoln Riley at USC, kind of a similar thing. Like, okay, well, let's see where this goes. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to see him kick the tires on an NFL job right now and see if he can hop that way, so he can avoid whatever's going to happen at USC. But again, where are we looking outside of coaches that may retire like Mac Brown?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm wondering. Is it feels like the movement will be dependent on something like that, of someone surprisingly going to the NFL or retiring, and all of a sudden then it creates the domino effect, right? Then it creates all of a sudden, okay, you saw what Nick Saban, when Nick Saban retires last year, all the different jobs that ends up impacting. And in February or late January, whenever it was, we end up having sort of this second life of the coaching carousel continuing to spin. And you're right, there just aren't those obvious openings. I mean, maybe there's not even going to be an opening for West Virginia, with the situation with Neil Brown, TBD on all of that. Are they going to, have that job open and hire a Jimbo Fisher? I don't know, but you're looking at these big jobs going, well, yeah, no, I mean, look, and if you're suggesting that these coaches are going to get fired, remember Brent Venables agreed to a contract extension that was announced a week before Oklahoma joins the SEC. They still want to win the breakup. His buyout is up to $39 million per the agreement that he and Joe Castiglione agreed upon before joining the SEC. So you kind of look around and you're just like, man, maybe we're going to have a quiet coaching carousel. And then there's going to be the one thing that's going to, of course, shake it all up.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike Norvell shook up his staff this week, Connor. Where do you think he goes? I think that he's probably been given the directive of, if you hire a buddy, they better be a buddy that we've heard of. I think that this is, and he even said, look, all possibilities are there, but he's going to have to take at least a couple big swings on that staff.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they go after someone like a Kirby Moore at Mizzou, someone that I think even Mizzou fans have sort of accepted. There's a very good possibility that their offensive coordinator's gone after his second season there. Totally overhauled that offense last year in what was Eli Drinkowitz's first season having an offensive play caller. He'd be a really interesting candidate. Mike Shanahan is another one to keep in mind, the Indiana offensive coordinator who could be in line for the Broyles Award. The situation that he's in with Kurt Cignetti is obviously a really good one. Maybe they're going to be a little bit Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubbish in the way that they've been kind of a package deal. And then all of a sudden, maybe they're not going to be. Ryan Grubb maybe was going to be a package deal at Alabama, then it ends up not happening and he gets the NFL OC job. But yeah, I think those are two to keep in mind. Yeah, between Florida State and Oklahoma, these two programs are going to break the bank to overhaul their offenses. I don't think there's any question about it. And that's with coordinator, that's with quarterback, that's with being able to keep guys that they actually like on that current roster. They're going to have to pay a lot for offensive linemen. I mean, you name it, they will be spending in the portal. It feels like Florida State and Oklahoma are going to set an unbelievably high market for offensive talent, offensive personnel across the board.
Yeah, I said earlier in the week that Florida State's follow-up is a worse sequel than Godfather 3. The more I think about it, it's Caddyshack 2. It's even worse than that. It's bad, man. It's bad. Everything's wrong. In the SEC this week, if Brady Cook was healthy, I could get behind the excitement of South Carolina and Mizzou. And I know that Mizzou beat Oklahoma last week, but South Carolina, quietly is the little underdog story outside of Vanderbilt of the SEC this year. And everybody was wondering when Shane Beamer was going to kind of put it together. It looks like he has this year. This is a pretty good team. If they seem to really, if they don't beat themselves, they're one of the toughest outs in the country.
It's the best team he's had. It is. And, I think that for South Carolina, this, talk about coaches that have kind of coached their way off of the hot seat. Let's not forget Ray Tanner, the AD at South Carolina, steps down first week of September. It's never good when all of a sudden you have a new boss and somebody that could be try and make their stamp. There's no bigger stamp to make as an athletic director in the Southeastern Conference than hiring your own football coach. So Shane Beamer, he's been around this business long enough to know that 5-7 probably wasn't going to be good enough if he wanted to run it back. And they overhauled that defense, the defensive line, with Dylan Stewart, the 5-star true freshman, and then Kyle Kennard, the Georgia Tech transfer, who's just been brilliant for that group and being able to rush the passer. And you're right. They just have an equalizer with that defensive line. It just changes what you can do. And while that's been the constant of this team, what has developed since these guys have gotten healthy is now they finally have an offensive identity with Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders. The 1-2 punch that they've been able to develop has been phenomenal. And so you look at this matchup against Mizzou, albeit against a Mizzou team that has owned South Carolina, 5 consecutive wins in this matchup. Eli Drinkwitz has never lost to South Carolina. You still look at it and go, well, this should favor South Carolina. There's a reason why they're nearly a 2-touchdown favorite in this one. And because of what we've seen from them as of late against A&M and last week against Vandy, you would think that would favor the Gamecocks. Really big spot. They haven't won a game as an AP top 25 team against an AP top 25 team since 2014. So this is a huge, huge spot and a nice opportunity for them to be able to kind of finish the season strong.
What are your thoughts on LSU after the last? I mean, they've lost to A&M, they've lost to Alabama. It looked like they've had the most topsy-turvy season this year, and now they're on the outside looking into the playoff. Don't think they're going to get in. Like, even with maybe a 3-loss SEC team gets in, it would not be them if there is. What do you think Brian Kelly has to do in the lab to get them pointed in the right direction, especially right now that he might have to pay $11 million to keep his quarterback recruit?
Goodness gracious. Yeah, the Bryce Underwood thing is just one layer of this whole deal with LSU, and the fact that it's coinciding with this free fall as of the last couple of games. Certainly the timing and the vibes are not good. Fake Mike the Tiger could not save LSU against Alabama last Saturday night, man. It's unbelievable to watch this 180 because I think you could point to two different areas and really see it. I in the middle of that game against A&M, I'm singing Blake Baker's praises. I'm saying this guy needs to be up for the Broyles Award. That's why you pay $2.5 million to go out and hire someone like that and to overhaul your defense. Well, I mean, what they have done since Marcel Reed stepped on the field in College Station is just stunning. They have allowed quarterbacks, Jalen Milroe and Marcel Reed, to average 11.8 yards per carry. I think it's 247 rushing yards on 21 carries and 7 rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks alone. 10 rushing touchdowns total in 5.5 quarters of football. I mean, it's absurd to realize that this group was looking like, man, they're really coming into their own. They're one of the better defenses in the SEC. Now they're a total doormat. And on the offensive side, Garrett Nussmeier's regressed. I mean, let's call it what it is. It's great that he has those tackles to be able to protect him. And he's got maybe 2 future offensive tackles who will be selected in the first round of the NFL draft. But the reality is he has gone into some places where it feels like he's seeing ghosts. And it feels like this is a guy that lacks the confidence that he had down the stretch against Ole Miss, where he looked unflappable. And he looked like this guy that could shake off anything. And now he looks like a guy that's legitimately rattled. And you kind of wonder where his head is going to be at down the stretch. He looks like a guy that was sneaking into that first round conversation in the NFL draft to all of a sudden being a guy like, man, I think he's got to come back to school. And does LSU want him to come back to school? It's very, very quickly that things have changed for this LSU team.
Yeah, Garrett, our producer, is over there.
Yeah, thanks, Connor.
Sorry, man. My co-host Will Ogburn is a diehard LSU fan. He was there in the building on Saturday night. I think he had a better chance of being able to tackle a ball carrier than any of those LSU defenders, and he's feeling it right now too. So I can commiserate with you on that.
Yeah, Tennessee and Georgia, the big one this week. If Georgia loses, are they out of the playoff for sure?
I think so. And I think the way that they lost to Ole Miss changed that conversation. Mm-hmm. To me, if we had been sitting here talking about Georgia at 9-3 and they lost 3 nail-biter games to respected top 10, top 12 playoff type teams, it's different. It's just different the way that we would have been talking about it and saying, man, this schedule is just so heads and shoulders above all the other contenders that we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're sitting there right now as the first team out because, yes, they are number 12, but but Boise State would be in as the top-ranked Group of 5 conference champ. So this is now a situation for Georgia where you have to treat this as a must-win game. I don't want to hear from Georgia fans if they're 9-3 with a blowout loss to Ole Miss and then they lose to Tennessee in consecutive weeks. I don't want to hear from Georgia fans after beating Georgia Tech. Oh yeah, we deserve to get in at 9-3 because we had the most difficult schedule. Don't get blown out by Ole Miss then. Stay on the field with them, because after the first 2 series of that football game, Georgia didn't belong on the field with Ole Miss. And that is so different than how this team has been perceived nationally. And it's such a different conversation than we were having after they beat Texas the way that they did in Austin. But no, I don't think that they get into the field at 9-3. I think that they would need just colossal chaos in order for something like that to happen.
Who are your 4 when it's all shakes out right now? If you had to say how this is going to end, who are the 4 teams that'll likely be 4 from the SEC that make it?
I'm staying with what I had in the preseason, and that's not look. Your boy is he's had some whiffs with his preseason predictions. Definitely some whiffs. Most notably a certain Florida State team that I predicted.
I think everybody but Feinbaum. Feinbaum was dead on. Everybody else, we whiffed bad.
Right. Look, I had Oklahoma State winning the Big 12.
Okay, that was
big old whiff on that one. Yeah. I'm an Indiana grad. There's no way on God's green earth that I would have had Indiana even smelling the college football playoff. But yeah, here we stand. Look, I would go with the 4 that I originally had, which was Texas, Georgia, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Those were the 4 teams coming into the season that I thought they had enough to be able to get into the college football playoff with pedigree, with the strengths and the lack of weaknesses we thought that they had. I looked at teams like Mizzou, and I kind of wondered, defensively, too much turnover. I realized the schedule is favorable, but now we're talking about Mizzou, and Eli Drinkwitz is getting laughed out of the room for the idea that a 10-2 team could still go to the college football playoff because of the way that they've lost those games to Alabama and Texas A&M. And you kind of look at Tennessee at 10-2 going, man, if they lose to Georgia, I think the selection committee, by moving Indiana and BYU ahead of Tennessee after all of them kind of had ho-hum victories, not necessarily move the needle wins, I think that's telling. And I think Tennessee would be in a really tough spot with the teams they would lack the head-to-head against. So, yeah, I'm kind of looking at those 4 thinking they have the most likely path. A&M obviously still very much in the mix. If they beat Texas, I think there's no question Texas A&M will make the field. But, yeah, it's shaping up for just a cluster of 10-2 teams that the selection committee is going to have to figure out who in the world deserves to be able to get into the field from the SEC.
Connor Orgera, Saturday Down South, one of our favorites every other week with us here on 365 Sports. Connor, have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, Ben. You too.
All right, there we go. That's Connor Orgera. This is 365 Sports. We're back after this. Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533. Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC.
Is your car ready for a makeover? Get ready to fall in love with your ride again at City Tire and Battery. City Tire and Battery is family owned and has provided expert service with top quality products since 1942. And with financing available, there's no reason to put off those much needed upgrades. Give your car the love it deserves and go see City Tire and Battery, located at 1502 South Valley Mills in Waco.
New arrivals just dropped at Barefoot Campus Outfitter in Waco. Looking for the best Baylor gear? Barefoot is the place to grab your gear. Game day polos, tees, tanks, caps, clear stadium bags, jewelry, and more. Barefoot Outfitters has all the essentials with unique campus apparel and offering comfortable garments and designs. Long-lasting images that people continue to enjoy wearing time and time again. Located right off I-35 on Spate, or shop at barefootcampusoutfitter.com and get free shipping on orders $75 or more. Go Bears.
Everything we do for you.
First
First Central Credit Union says it's game on. Lower your monthly vehicle payments by refinancing your vehicle with First Central. Make it a winning season with refinancing set to your preferences. You decide the due date and frequency. Financed elsewhere? Save money with a new local game plan. Apply online today. We make it easy to score at firstcentralcu.com.
Membership and loan policy requirements apply. Member NCUA.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Call Deborah Holder at 254-300-7202 to see if you qualify to save up to 40% on your auto insurance.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
New best friend in the whole world, Kenneth Davis, Big Ten country, joins us from Chicago, the Windy City. Kenneth, we were talking about, usually we get into games. This week, there's some games we can talk about, but I kind of wanted to do a big picture segment with you because there's a lot of stuff here at the end of the season going on. One of the things is, and it boggles my mind that a coach that's as smart and good as Sharon Moore, really, really good. And I think he's going to have Michigan winning a lot of games. If nothing else shows you that, they're sitting at 500 right now with a black hole at quarterback. There is nothing good coming out of that position. And they've managed to continue, they're going to finish 500 or better and without a quarterback. That tells me they've got something there. Now, a lot of that's left over from Harbaugh, but I think he's clearly smart enough to keep it going and good enough at his job. But they didn't get in the portal. When Ohio State started talking about Will Howard, if I were Michigan, I'd been like, no. I want them to wait a little bit. I want them to have to. I want them to struggle a little bit on this thing, and they didn't get in that business because they were happy with their guys. Now they've got a situation with Bryce Underwood where it appears, and we'll let Garrett in a second, that he has turned down a lot of money to come to Michigan, that LSU has probably beaten that. How does Michigan get in a spot the year after a national title where they don't have a quarterback on a team that could have easily contended for the Big Ten with one?
I think when you think about the situation where if he's in or if he's out, and I'm talking about former Michigan head coach, also former quarterback Jim Harbaugh, kind of plays into that, because I think we all know when you're recruiting, you're always going to point out the deficiencies or what's going on in another program, particularly if it's in his backyard being from Michigan. So, because to me, I would ask with Harbaugh there, why, and we know, that Kentucky came for him, and, people have been asking this young pedigree kid to commit for a long time, why Michigan wasn't up there in the first place. And it would seem that perhaps he may have had his eye to get out of state, or perhaps maybe Michigan. I doubt Michigan wasn't interested having a kid with that much talent in state. So I can't place all of that for him on Sharon Moore. I can't put all of that on Sharon Moore, because even though I'll say this, we have to remember Sharon Moore was the lead recruiter for Michigan, but I think it has more to do with the fact the young man probably was looking beyond Michigan, and also the bag at both of these are football universities, but you're talking SEC money, and LSU still has that little blood in his mouth from Joe Burrow winning a national title several years ago. And it's like, we don't want to sit there and wait another decade, because it kind of seems like maybe every decade, every 8 years is when LSU kind of gets that, when they're a legitimate title contention, and they're like, we're not about to wait that long, so let's dive in now. So just for this player, now I'll say this, when you asked this, you've asked this for like 5 weeks prior to this.
Yeah.
Transfer portal, last week was Will Howard, but in general, transfer portal wise, why didn't Michigan do something? Clearly there was a failure with Sharon Moore. They should have done something. So that's how I kind of view it. But then also I kind of thought about this with you guys, right? So this was a heavy Garrett show in my mind today, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking initially, just the top of my brain before really doing a deep dive. I'm like, all right, neither one of these universities are really heralded as quarterback factories, right? And I just started going to my mind. Of course, you can say the GOAT, Tom Brady, went to Michigan, but he wasn't the clear favorite even at Michigan, and we know where he was drafted. You and I are old enough to remember 49ers and Ravens, but particularly 49ers, Elvis Grbac, and of course, as aforementioned, Jim Harbaugh, and we don't know what J.J. McCarthy may end up doing. Just pointing out some of the quarterbacks from Michigan that have had some sort of success within NFL. So then I started thinking about LSU, and I had to slap myself, Garrett. I'm going to give you some props right here, right?
Okay.
Because I was thinking about, listen, I hope Jamarcus Russell was going to be somebody as a kid, especially being a brother. Let me put my cards full on the table. Rohan Davey, and even, listen, Justin Jefferson. I remember Justin Jefferson's older brother when he was playing there, right? So I was in the LSU. I've been down with the Tigers or whatever, but you know where my affinity lays. But I've usually been really an SEC person outside of being with Big Ten country, and the Big Ten kind of making me more interested over the years. I know it's disrespectful living up north, but hey, I like quality sports. Whatever. Get at me if you want to get at me. But when I started thinking about, okay, wait, Joe Burrow was just there, even though he was a transfer, but still he was there. But then when you look at what Jaden Daniels did last season, and I mean, to start picking up towards the end of the prior season, it just makes more sense if you're talking about ensuring what you may be able to do in the pros right now. And I offer you, all right, look at what a player that may be more in the vein of how you played in a Jaden Daniels, and you look at, let's just say, the last quality quarterback at Michigan, J.J. McCarthy. And again, he's sat there and he's committed to LSU several years from now. I think a couple years ago. It still makes more sense, probably even being that I'm here because of the Big Ten, probably to commit to LSU, even though me being up here, I would love to see him stay in state and go to Michigan and give Sharon more of that chance with what that defense and we know that running game is. But this is his future, and I'm always a big proponent of do what's best for you. I'll say this, though. I know it's supposed to be like close to 11, and I'm not saying that Michigan can outspit. I mean, wait, Michigan, there's a lot of rich people that graduated from Michigan 1. All right. I'm sure both of these schools, alumni wise, have crazy money and endowments. But Michigan should put up as much money as possible to try to make sure they can get back into contention right away if they believe he could be the quarterback in the future to prop them up back in the national contention. But it's a shame to see him leave the state. And I saw the post with him posting that, he's likely going to stay at LSU. And I mean, as I'm not a Michigan fan, but I'm sure that had to sting like a shot to the arrow to see that you don't have a chance to have that instant boost. But you know what? There's still going to be some quarterbacks out there in the transfer portal, perhaps, that they can perhaps to bring in and maybe be suitable, but it may not be this young heralded number one prospect coming out next season.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty wild to me though that you can have a kid from Michigan that just says no. Now Garrett's thrilled. Oh, and let's bring Garrett in on screen now. Garrett's thrilled. Yeah, Garrett's thrilled that he could be staying, he's staying. He was in Baton Rouge. You said last night.
Yeah,
right?
he was there for the Bama game.
Yeah, he was there for the Bama game.
Which,
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thanks, Kenneth. Thank
you. You're not that sorry, Kenneth. Don't pretend. But it is like. I wonder where Michigan goes from here, because to me it looks like they're going to have to get in the portal, at least get a rental, and then splash with a Deuce Knight who's committed to Auburn right now but is taking visits, or
Julian Lewis.
There's that kid that's committed to Maryland that I think would do well in their system. Big 6'4", like 210 guy, but they're going to have to do that. But things shift really fast in college football now. I'm not going to use the example that I know that you guys want me to use because I will cry. But
what would that be?
Yeah, that would be a team that was 13-0 and is now 1-9. So they shift fast. You don't want to be that. I hope for everybody else in the world's sake that that's the only time this happens. But I do think that this is going to happen more often now with the transfer portal, where a team hits on it and then they're the Florida Marlins, right? They're all of a sudden it's all gone. Like, you have that great year, it's all gone, and then you have to put back the pieces. As good and as big as powerful as Michigan is, they could very well be that team in a year or two.
Easily. I'll say this. I think there's several factors to add into what you may not fall as precipitously as FSU, and that's the team he's referring to, that Notre Dame. And that has to hurt that it was ND that just beat the crap out of y'all last weekend. Hey, that's just bad business. But I think if it depends on, of course, coaching, but really, and I know here goes Ken with that Big Ten stuff, what you kind of have in the trenches and out on the edges as far as talent. Because one, if you got a kid that's even a game manager, but you have a phenomenal run game, it can keep you to where you may only have 2 to 3 losses in a season, and it keeps you attractive. I think now what we're going to have to see is how can you continuously make your school it? And it doesn't have to be at the zenith of it, where it's what Alabama was, but it has to be where it's in the top 8, kind of, I believe, where, and it doesn't fall off. Like, a bad year may be at max 3 losses, or it's a bad year because you had 4 losses, but your Heisman candidate got hurt early and it took you out. I think if you can continuously show kids that you have a chance to get them to the pros, you're still going to be a program that's going to get kids to come there, because that's really what most of these kids want, the easiest avenue and the biggest billboard to present themselves to get drafted as high as possible in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kenneth, we saw the second week in a row of playoff rankings come out. 4 Big Ten teams stand to make it right now. And outside of that, I think the big question is, because if Penn State wins out, they're going to be in as disappointing at, like, their schedule's not great, and their one quality team they played, they lost to, but they'll still be in. Probably doesn't bode well for them in seeding or who they're going to play in the first round of the playoffs. I think the big question comes in Indiana and Ohio State. If Indiana beats Ohio State, that'll be Ohio State's second loss. How much is Ohio State punished in the rankings for that? But if Ohio State beats Indiana, much like Ohio State beat Penn State, if that should it be a close game, which I really think it will, because Indiana's good. Who gets punished for that, and does Indiana at 11-1 get knocked out of the playoff, as where Ohio State at 10-2 would not?
No, I don't think Indiana should get knocked out of the playoff if they lose to, at right now, number 2 ranked Ohio State. And Ohio State lost by 1 point to Oregon? No. That to me, and I understand Penn State is messing this all up. Yes, Drew Our fan club president right here. I'm not abandoning them. It stinks over there in Happy Valley, though. And they should not be perhaps in the CFP, but definitely this high in the rankings. But I believe definitely Indiana deserves the chance, if they have one loss to second-ranked Ohio State, to still be within the playoffs. I think there's a couple of schools that we could perhaps look at as perhaps not getting knocked out before we go. I mean, look, what about Mississippi? I won't say Alabama, because that'd just burn my mouth to say something like Alabama. And I mean, it's hard for me to put anybody. I think Georgia's a little bit too low, and they have the best strength of schedule. So it will be hard for me to disrespect what Kirby's doing. And I know this isn't last season or seasons prior, but to almost have a chance to three-peat, I mean, I'm an Alabama person, and I don't like to disrespect what Kirby's been doing at Georgia for 5 seasons, basically. Yeah. So I think I would say perhaps Mississippi will be the school that I would look at and say that if some school didn't make it with them having 2 losses, that perhaps they should be the school that gets knocked out to keep Indiana in. But I'll be honest with you, it should just be Penn State. I mean, if we're being like that, and that's the problem. Penn State is really messing a lot up right now for schools that deserve it. I wish Penn State had a victory against somebody that counted, but when you just look at who they've beaten and who they've lost to, it's bad business for the Big Ten, and Penn State is where they're at right now, doing Penn State things.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think, like, for right now, the way I look at it, if no matter what happens, if Indiana beats Ohio State, in my opinion, shouldn't be out because there'll be plenty of 10-2 teams, especially from the SEC that are in. And if Ohio State's 2 losses are to the number 1 team and the number 5 team, I mean, that's
you got Indiana beating Ohio State, Paul?
No, but like if they did, like
Ohio State,
Ohio State at 10-2 should still be in because Alabama at 10-2 would be in, right?
I'm with you.
I'm
going
A&M at 10-2 would be, if A&M beats Texas, A&M at 10-2 would be in.
Right.
So again, Ohio State, that would be wildly disappointing and might get Ryan Day fired for a stupid reason because
we'll be mad at that. We'll be mad at that, Paul.
Yeah, he's got a subset of fans that is growing. That every second that he doesn't win a national title, or every second he doesn't beat Michigan, and look, if he beats if he doesn't beat this Michigan team,
oh no,
yeah, I mean, basically, if he doesn't beat this Michigan team but still gets in the playoff, his thing is you better win all the rest. Like we're already like polishing off a spot for a trophy, or you're out. And that would be like the one big job that's open this year because I don't think there's going to be a lot.
Who do you think? Okay, I want to get back to this.
Yeah.
But you just said something. Hypothetically, who do you think that is a named person that would jump to that job? Because I don't have the person that I would know that.
I don't either because because with Ryan Day, he was just Urban Meyer's, you're the successor. I'm moving on with that. Now, if Luke Fickell had been better the last couple years at Wisconsin, and they may still go ahead and say, look, he kicked ass at Cincinnati. Let's just put him in here. Wisconsin, he's trying to change the system and all that. He can just come here. Like that would be my number 1 choice for them. But Wisconsin's just been okay for the last 2 years. So I don't know. Like I honestly have no idea. Like it's probably somebody in the NFL we're not thinking about, or maybe it is Mike Vrabel. Like maybe they would get Mike Vrabel because that's about the only college job they can get him for. And there's a bunch of people who'd want to hire him. But yeah, I don't have a name in mind. Like, and that might also save Ryan Day. I think part of it has saved Billy Napier in that, okay, are you going to be able to wrestle Lane Kiffin away from Ole Miss? Maybe. But, in spite of other things going on there, like, what are you going to do? If you want to make a splash hire right now with the playoff going as long as it is, so a splash hire means that you've got to hire a playoff coach or a coach that's right near the playoff, right? Well, they're not going to leave until it's over. Like, it's different.
I got a guy.
Okay.
He's not in the playoffs either. I got a guy. Okay. And listen, I hope you all on here, you kind of know me a little bit, know that I think I'm a good person. All right. I believe.
I think you are.
I try in my life to be a good person, but as anybody, I'm flawed. Everyone is imperfect. This person kind of isn't a good person. All right. Again, I don't know. But to be honest, I think you got to go back and get the guy that built it up because he's out there working on weekends right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, to be honest, if there was no one out there that I think could get us back to where we are. And you got to think it's an open field. And I'm referring to Urban Meyer, everybody who works for Fox, right? It's open. If you give Urban a chance in the playoffs, what could happen? Like with 12 teams in the playoffs? Again, they've already allowed him to do things at that university that's like what was going on up there. And again, because I don't think a lot of times nowadays people really care as much about PR hits. It's just kind of the way the world is winging it. But that's kind of the way that I would kind of be leaning at who
what
got
makes
us
you
in this
say that,
situation.
Kenneth?
What?
What makes you say that?
I don't know, man. I open the door and open the window and I look out. It's like, wow, it's wild out here, right? But listen, I want to get back to something that we were talking about, and this was when you were talking about Ohio State losing to Indiana, right? Listen, you said this last week, and it was about should Indiana feel confident or feel burned rather that they're not playing a quality quarterback under center for Michigan. And I was like, they better just accept what they were getting. And they only won by 5 points out there. Mind you, I'm not bragging about it because my prognostications have been terrible this year, right? Like, look at Iowa. Like, I watched Friday and was like, I got to go back on that show next Friday. I am getting my ass kicked in prediction streets, right? But the point being, when you look at the trenches, and that was kind of the problem with why it was like, you know what, Michigan may have a chance, and you think about, for instance, Penn State versus Ohio State, and how on the defensive side, how all those young men that came back last year really starting the fourth quarter, third quarter, turned the heat up on Drew Allen, that team. And I think that's what's going to stop Indiana from beating Ohio State. I think, like you said, it could be a close game, but I think Ohio State just has too much for Indiana at this point. And again, like I've said to you, I want to take a wait and see approach to see over the long haul how this program may grow. But that's why I kind of feel like it's going to be a one-loss Indiana team rather than a two-loss Ohio State team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did want to talk about Nebraska and USC this week. This game between mediocre teams it's a bit of a dud from what we had maybe hoped for early in the year. Now, Nebraska can get to bowl eligibility, and I actually think that they will this week. I'm picking Nebraska to win this game because USC feels a little hapless, but Jordan Maava gets the start. They're changing quarterbacks. Lincoln Riley, I feel like I don't want to say he has one foot out the door, but I do feel like he's lost his passion for college coaching because Oklahoma Lincoln Riley and this guy are not the same guy. Like, they are not the same guy right now. Now, look, they have the same problems, but his attitude feels completely different to me. And, you know, he somehow messed up both those jobs simultaneously by taking the USC job. How do you see this game shaking out with the new quarterback for USC and the fact that nothing's happened the way that USC wanted it to since bringing Lincoln Riley over?
One, I wonder where you think when you said that you don't see him remaining in college football, where he's going to end up going. So that's a discussion for another day.
I think,
particularly
look,
if it's going to
here's
be
the
close
deal.
to me or not.
I think he would. I think if they made the right kind of offer on the right kind of day, you know, he could buy a jacket.
I don't know if that. Again, and we're talking about the Bears and Caleb. Everybody is what I think we're hinting about.
Yes,
it's just still one. It's one of those situations of I don't want to say failing up because he was good at Oklahoma. And I like how you said he ruined two jobs. That was a good one. But at least he has head coaching experience, and I worry about the Bears bringing in someone because I'm a big Ben Johnson offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions guy.
Me too.
But you get tired of someone who has no head coaching experience, and that's a different animal. And even though you can be a great, prolific offensive mind, being the CEO of both sides of the ball and the locker room is a different thing. This one's a hard to call game. You know that I've liked what's been going on with Nebraska, but it's early, and it's something that we've talked about. It's really early. Switching to Jordan Maava, and make, you know what? I'm be honest with you. I'm still gonna take SC in this one.
Okay.
You know, like I'm still gonna take SC because I think Lincoln Riley, he does I don't want to say stupid, but it's stuff that we don't expect. Like, you know, the bowl game last year, and how Miller Moss just went off, and it was just like, you know, Caleb isn't going to play, you know, man, what's next year going to be? And it kind of gave you hope. And it was funny because I thought Jordan may have still had an opportunity to get this job in the off season. And I wonder, will this be one of those things where he takes off and it's hot, and then we think for a second he could be him, and then we find out either at the remainder of this year or next year that he's not him. But it's just, I think Nebraska's kind of beaten up. And I don't think it's going to be something that's going to hurt them next year. I think this is going to be something that benefits Nebraska in growing next year. But I'm just going to go with SC because I've been wrong a lot the last 4 weeks anyway. So I may as well continue my streak of being terrible at predictions.
Well, look, my co-host, regularly Smokey, he's a Mr. Nebraska fan. I mean, we've got the helmet right back there that Matt Rule sent us. So if you're wrong, he would love it because that means they're in a bowl game for the first time in, I think 2 presidential administrations now. So it would be a big deal. Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country, We're going to carve out some time to talk about the Bears
That's
and
crazy.
Lincoln Riley.
And I'll say this. I hope Nebraska wins. I'm still taking SC. I love the fact that, Matt Rule has been doing that in Nebraska, but I'm still taking SC, but it'll be great to see them make a bowl game. But I'll say this, they'll be in a bowl game within the next couple of years, and it won't just be a bowl game because we made a bowl game. I think in 2 seasons, they should perhaps be in the playoffs. I won't say next year they'll be in the playoffs. They have an opportunity. I think in 2 seasons, Matt Rule will have Nebraska back in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country, here with us on 365 Sports. After this, it's the top 5.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Oh, man, this is the best.
Yeah, too bad we have to go to work tomorrow.
What? Why?
Monday.
Where's my report? You millennials are all the same.
You okay, Dexter?
What happened?
You need Sunday scaries.
Screw you, Monday! Woo! Yes!
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
There are hundreds of things that can affect our sleep, but what's affecting yours? Sleep Doctor's Home Sleep Test brings the precision of a sleep lab into the comfort of home to help you get answers and unlock a lifetime of great sleep. Start now at sleepdoctor.com/TV.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into the Friday edition of Paul's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Use our promo code 365 Sports. Auctions coming up all the time right now. The holiday season is coming, and what better way to prepare for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, than with some amazing Texas-raised Wagyu beef, the best. Not kidding. You'll need it for the holidays. And everybody's going to be like, holy crap, what is this? And you're going to say, It's Texas Beef House because I only serve the best. Today, since look, I've had to do the whole 3 hours by myself and had to do it for weeks now, I'm going to do an FSU related top 5. And if you have a problem with that, I will fight you in the street. I will slap you like Mike Tyson slapped Jake Paul. That's what I'll do. No, I think this is interesting and has tentacles across all of college football because FSU is the first to make these gigantic wholesale staff changes. This is my FSU dream staff. And I will give you a scale of 1 to 5 on how likely each of these are to happen. And I have a feeling on number 2 that Garrett might chime in and tell me, just yell out, no, it's not going to happen. But we'll see. Number 5. Wide receiver coach Brian Hartline. They let go Ron Dugans last week, who was a member of the 99 National Championship team, an alum, someone that did a pretty good job in recruiting, more or less, but the development wasn't there, and the weakest position on the offense this year outside of offensive line was wide receiver. So he was out the door. Now, how do you replace him? My thing is go to the best one available, which is Brian Hartline, and see if he'll take it. Now, he is at his alma mater. He is killing it there. The best wide receivers in the country wind up going to Ohio State all the time. Do I think, on a scale of 1 to 5, that they can get Brian Hartline? No. But you start at the top and work your way down. Again, it's my dream staff, but if you want to get some good recruits and get them out of the state that you're in, for example, Jeremiah Smith, their stud true freshman wide receiver, is from Florida. Now he's braving the cold to go be a stud wide receiver at Ohio State. That's something that you shouldn't let happen. And if he can recruit Florida better than you can recruit Florida, maybe you need to get him back down there, and not back down there, but down there and doing some recruiting for you. Knock him over with money if you have to. Number 4, offensive line, Mike Bloomgren, an FSU alum who coached offensive line and was the offensive coordinator for David Shaw at Stanford. And if you remember the David Shaw Stanford offensive lines, they were slobber knockers. Development, power, run blocking, they would knock your D in the dirt, and that's what Florida State needs. They have not had great offensive line development really since Jimbo left. And even before Jimbo left, it had tailed off. The first couple years of Jimbo, Rick Trickett was still doing a great job. Post that, it's just slowly gone down. It ticked up a little bit with Alex Atkins, who they just let go, but no development. You've got a senior-laden offensive line this year that was awful, and one that has had 9 different combinations on it. No good at all. This, Mike Bloomgren, would be an excellent choice. This I would put more at a 3.5 to a 4 happening, because I think he'd be very interested in coming back to the job. Number 3. Defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard was at Wisconsin, was widely sought after as a defensive coordinator all over college football, opted to work for the Broncos as a special assistant this year. This is a guy, young, dynamic, excellent defensive coordinator, very much in the Dave Aranda mode as far as scheme goes and his ability to think through a defense. This is the guy they need to replace Adam Fuller. There's a couple others you might go to, and you might see if there's some big firings as far as defensive-minded head coaches. I don't think those are going to happen. The one, I think, pie in the sky for Florida State fans is Brent Venables, who was at Clemson before he was at Oklahoma. He was, of course, at Oklahoma before he was at Clemson. I think Brent Venables is that pie in the sky. He's probably not getting fired at Oklahoma, not this year. So go and be realistic. Get a guy like Jim Leonhard, who's younger, can recruit. I really think this would be a home run hire for them. I think this is probably about a 3 right now. All options open. Number 2, associate head coach Frank Wilson from LSU, one of the best recruiters in the country. He's a Louisiana guy. He went to Nicholls State. You might remember him if you're not familiar with his work at LSU lately and his work at LSU before. He was the head coach at UTSA. Obviously got Frank Harris there. Is a very good recruiter and a very good coach. Maybe not the best head coach, but he had some success at UTSA and has a lot of savvy. Garrett's going to punch me after this is over because he is maybe the best recruiter on LSU staff right now. I mean, depending on the recruiting rankings, they've got yeah, Bo Davis is pretty damn good too. Pretty good. So I'm not getting Bo Davis. I know that. So I decided if I'm going to cherry recruiter, I'm going to get Frank Wilson. More offensive minded. I think that's a bigger issue for them recruiting going forward. And number one, offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle from Wazoo, one of the best young offensive minds in the country, and he might have an in with a quarterback who could be interested in the transfer portal. Who is that? John Mateer. John Mateer has had a fantastic year, super athletic, from Little Elm, Texas, playing off in Wazoo. Let's get him where it's warm and play some ball at FSU. But excellent choice. He's an offensive innovator. Now, Mike Norvell would have to give up the play calling duties, which I think he is going to do. Ben Arbuckle, let him call plays. Look, Mike, the last year has shown that FSU needs an executive, a CEO. Let the coordinators coordinate. Let the offensive play caller call the plays. Let that not be you. You've done a great job, a fantastic job. This year was a disaster, but before that, did a great job establishing the kind of culture you wanted. This can help bring it back, and you can, in the transitional years of FSU trying to get bigger and trying to make sure that they are not left out of the big boy college football, these are the moves you got to make. Ben Arbuckle for offensive coordinator, because he might come with a quarterback. These are things that happen in football. That's going to do it for the top five. Have a great weekend, everybody. Please, Mike Norvell, watch this. I'm here to help you out.